1 minute.
How you doing?
Super. Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, June 4th, 2024. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our first presentation this evening is to recognize a student athlete. Dr. Megan Green, Chief of High Schools, will begin the presentation. Dr. Green?
Good evening. Tonight, we recognize the amazing achievement of Riverview High School state champion track athlete Susan Lowther. I would like to thank Superintendent Connor and the entire school board for recognizing the importance of these great accomplishments of our individual student athletes and teams throughout the school year. We celebrate these students for not only how they perform in competition, but also for how they strive for academic excellence, model personal integrity, and maintain true character every day. Tonight, we recognize Riverview High School senior Susan Lowther, who won the FHSAA 4A discus and shot put event. Susan won 2 state championships with an impressive throw in discus of 149 feet and 1 inch and shot put of 43 feet and 6.5 inches. In addition to her outstanding accomplishments in track and field, Susan will be attending Clemson University on a full lacrosse scholarship this fall. I want to thank Riverview High School Principal Aaron Hoy, Assistant Principal Jay Lorenz, and Athletic Director Rod Dragish for all their support to make Riverview High School athletics great. I want to also recognize Susan's parents, who I'm positive have spent many years sitting fieldside watching her grow and cheering her on, and their stadium just got a whole lot bigger. Unfortunately, Susan and her family are not able to be with us this evening, but we want to recognize their great accomplishments and all of their success. I also want to invite up her coach, Dave Catalfino, to share a few words of recognition for our student athlete tonight. Thank you.
Okay, I'll just say a few short words. Susan is, I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. Susan is an outstanding athlete who checks all the boxes of somebody you'd want to coach. Works hard, takes everything very serious. She's also an excellent lacrosse player who's going to Clemson to play lacrosse. So it's almost like she won the state championship for fun. So it was really outstanding to see her do her thing at the state level and win the championship. We're all very proud of her.
Thank
you. Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations once again to Susan Lowther, and our next presentation is to recognize the Energy Star Schools. Mr. Jody Dumas, Executive Director of Facilities, will begin this presentation.
Well, thank you, Board Superintendent Connor. We appreciate the opportunity to recognize our energy program tonight. And I want to talk for a second about our energy program. On operations, Dr. Mike Kemp, our Chief Operating Officer, and I talk all the time about making sure whatever's going on in operations, we're always trying to minimize costs, because when we spend on the operation side, whatever that is, whether it's transportation or energy, we're spending general fund dollars. And so we want to minimize those costs so we can spend them where we really want to spend them, which is with teachers in classrooms where we're really impacting students. And so as we look at the budget and we work with Ms. Penner, our CFO, and ways to reduce energy consumption, the cost of energy in that budget is always a big number. In fact, last year was $9.8 million the school district spent on energy consumption expenses. And so that's a number we want to look at. And so over the course of our program over the last 10, 12 years, we've always tried to reduce the cost of energy through energy consumption reduction. We partnered in 2022 with a company called Synergistics, and they came alongside of us and work on our program to reduce energy across the district. And that's a combination of a couple of different ways. One, making sure operationally our systems are running as effectively as possible, and when we don't need to have them running, they're shut down. That's number one. And number two, it's really working on educating staff, students, everybody that's in our buildings, that when something doesn't need to be on, we turn it off, and we go home for the night, we turn our computers off, we turn our monitors off. So it's really about shutting down, it's about behaviors, and it's about making sure we run as effectively as possible across our district. So we're really excited here tonight because the results of those efforts, we have some schools and we have some buildings that are Energy Star rated. And you get to be Energy Star rated by your buildings perform within the top 25% of like buildings nationwide in terms of energy performance and ventilation. So when you meet that strict criteria, it's something to really celebrate, because it's not only the staff at facility services in terms of making sure the systems are working well, it's the staff at the school site under the leadership of principal and assistant principals that are really leading the way to reduce the cost of energy on those sites. And so that's something that they're shepherding for us. And so we want to recognize those schools tonight. So in order to do that, let me call up our team. I want to have Mike come up and Don Hampton to come up. And we're going to have Ann and Anna from Synergistics come up. They are our two energy specialists that are, when we're home sleeping, they're in our buildings making sure things aren't running. And so come on up, guys. We're going to go ahead and we're going to pass these out as I call and recognize our schools. And so as I call you up, if you want to come up and you can just shake everybody's hand, we'll get the awards. And if you wouldn't mind, we'll line up right in front of the board and we'll snap a picture of all the schools that got awards. And so let's, without further ado, let's get into the awards. I will say, and this did surprise me, because one of the, Ann has been our energy specialist for the landings. And so every time we'd go into a shutdown, she'd come out and do the energy audits, and I'd get the emails all the time. And it was a little embarrassing when I get an email in my own office that something wasn't shut down. So I'm super proud to announce that we have 2 landings buildings setting the example for the district that received Energy Star Awards, and that is green and blue awning. And so I'm going to ask Dr. Mike Kemp to come on up and receive those awards. All right, and when you receive the award, like I said, if you just line up in front of the board so we can get a picture of everybody. Gulfgate Elementary, Michelle Miller. Where are you, Michelle? Come on up. Congratulations. Atwater Elementary School, Cynthia Throw. Come on up. Booker High School, Dr. Rachel Shelley. Venice Middle School, Tomas DeVerno. And Pineview School, Dr. Stephen Covert. Did I skip? Oh, Woodland. And Woodland Middle School, Mark Grossenbacher. I don't know if I saw Mark. Okay, we'll accept it for him. Hey, Mark. Well, like I said, it's important for us at the district level to have administrators on site that support not only education and what's going on in the classroom, but really the operation of the school. And this team here supports that, and it shows in terms of the awards they got here tonight for Energy Star in their building. So congratulations, everybody. As a result of the efforts of this program, we've been able to avoid over $2 million in expenses that would have been in place if we had not had this energy reduction in place. So I know Ms. Penner would like us to reduce more of our costs, and we're always working on that, but congratulations to this team. So if we want to go up, let's stand with them up here at the, yeah, we'll just hold it there. Yeah. You can jump up here. Yeah, we're good.
Superintendent Connor, your report, please.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Madam Chair and board members. I'm happy to present tonight the superintendent's report. Hard to believe we are already in the initiation of summer, and it's been a great closing of school. I've got to say, during my first year here, I have nothing to compare it to other than my previous experiences in other districts, and I can say by far, one of the best closings of schools and graduation ceremonies that I have ever participated in. So hats off to all of our schools for a successful close. And as we launch into the school year, I want to present a few items to you. On our consent agenda, I want to highlight item number 14. It is the approval of the contract between Alyssa Craig from STEM Mania and the School Board of Sarasota County. This will be Fruitville Elementary School's one of 4 one-hour STEM lessons to all 5th grade students, and we will be able to have in-person, hands-on learning opportunities for our students over the summer around STEM topics such as weathering and erosion and the scientific method. So the learning still continues over the summer each and every day. Couple of announcements. We are very proud of Logan DeWitt, who has been hired as one of our summer custodians at Riverview High School, where he was a part of the structured work program. And we're thrilled that he's going to be working with one of our best, Mr. Tommy Watts, who is the head custodian at Riverview High School. Also, Bayhaven places 3rd in the Odyssey of the Mind competition, which is an amazing feat. Out of 56 teams across the globe, more than 700 teams competed, and Bayhaven was actually the #1 U.S. team. So congratulations to Bayhaven. Just want to make a highlight around our School District Association's golf tournament. This is an annual fundraiser that we do, and it has made it possible for us to present 21 of our high school seniors with a $750 scholarship. So thanks to all. I had the opportunity to participate. I was in first place in my mind, probably 20 last, and I was probably last in reality, but we had a great time. I was able to take my son out there, and we really enjoyed it. So looking forward to seeing it next year, and thanks for all that happened there. Booker Middle School is recognized as our outstanding arts school by the Arts School Network. This award is given to schools with an outstanding record of excellence in various categories, and they will be holding their award ceremony during the annual conference, which I believe is going to be hosted at Booker Middle, the first time a school has ever hosted their conference next year. Congratulations to Booker Middle School. We want to take a moment to recognize our Ripple Effect Award winners. This is such an amazing opportunity where the Barancik Foundation provides a gift of $5,000 to each of these teachers for their outstanding work and efforts and what they do each and every day. So congratulations to Stacy Balanca, Shannon Wynn, Jillian Nelson, Carrie Kuntz, and Brittany Smith, who all were recipients of the Ripple Effect Award. Congratulations. Want to make note of one current district leadership changes. We have a few that are upon us over the summer, and one of the most recent one is Mr. Ray Wilson, who was previous principal at Laurel Nokomis School, will now be filling the shoes of Mr. Kirk Hutchinson as the new principal of Venice Elementary. And if you don't remember, Dr. Kirk Hutchinson is now serving as the Chief of Student Services for the district. So congratulations to Mr. Wilson. And we had a great time last week and an opportunity to have our first of the year swearing in ceremony and award ceremony simultaneously with our school police department. And I just have to say, hats off to the brave men and women who step into this role. I know it's not a glamorous role, but it is such an important role to take on and fill the gap of the safety and security of our schools. It's now more important than ever to have people who are willing and ready to respond in the case of an emergency. And I got to say, after participating in this swearing-in ceremony and seeing the awards that were given, we are in great hands when it comes in terms of safety and security in our schools here in Sarasota County. And hats off to everyone who participated in that. Thank you to our police department. And just a reminder that our summer feeding program is underway, and it has started, and any child or teen under the age of 18 can get free food this summer. You can visit our website for more information at sarasotacountyschools.net/summer feeding. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Superintendent Connor. We have 39 community members signed up to speak this evening. Welcome to the Hearing of Citizens segment of our meeting. This forum allows the community to engage with the school board on matters concerning our education system. All speakers should have submitted a completed comment card before this segment. Speakers will be called in the order received. Each speaker will state their full name and shall confine their remarks to the business of the school board. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. A timer will signal when 1 minute remains. Please conclude promptly when the timer ends. Please address your comments to the board, not to the audience. We expect all remarks to be delivered in a manner consistent with school board policy. Abusive language, personal attacks, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Please direct any personal grievances or personal issues in writing to the school board office. Audience members are requested to listen quietly and respectfully. Outbursts, applause, or other interruptions that disrupt the meeting are not acceptable. Any person that interferes with the expeditious or orderly process of this meeting after first being warned that such continued interference will result in removal will be removed. There are speakers in the room behind me that allow board members to hear public comments when stepping away from the dais. When your name is called, please approach the podium. If you choose to pass, you will forfeit your time to address the board. And I would like to remind speakers that playing a recording is not allowed, so you cannot play a recording during your 3 minutes of public comment, please. We appreciate your cooperation, and let's begin with our first speaker.
First up is Richard Canarelli, and then Barbara Vaughn.
Good evening. Thank you for the board for this opportunity to make several comments. Several years ago, there was an advertisement for Fram oil filters. Simply said, pay me now or pay me later. This simple slogan has a lot of applications. In healthcare, it means putting money into prevention to save money in the long run. In economics, it means investing to create jobs. In education, it means investing in early education to create stronger and better students who are more likely to become productive members of society. Regarding the strategic plan, I commend the board and the administration for its development, but I have one comment about it. I find it incomprehensible, and I don't understand that the board is considering charging any family, regardless of their income level, to pay for the extended day education and language programs. Is it because the dollars are being siphoned off to pay for vouchers to private schools and religious schools? Public money should go for public schools. Are poor and middle-class families being forced to fund a deficit caused by these programs? The state of Florida declared that it has a multi-billion-dollar surplus. Is it impossible for such a family-oriented legislature to find the resources to fund all levels of early education programs which ultimately benefit the economy and the citizens of all of Florida? Pay now or pay the consequences later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Barbara Vaughn, and then Esther Rockwell.
Good evening. You all know me well, but my name is Barbara Vaughn, and I am a citizen of Sarasota County. And my intention is to pray. Our Lord and Savior, we come to you humbly this evening in need of your forgiveness. We have disappointed you, broken your laws repeatedly, often flaunting them instead of regretting them, and so often failing to seek your forgiveness. We come to you today as well to ask your blessings on this school board meeting. Keep our minds, our thoughts, our words, and our actions focused on our precious students. Renew our commitment to set everything else aside and concentrate on our students' reading scores and math abilities, in addition to their other academics. Help us here to set aside our petty political differences and focus on educating our children. I pray, Lord, that every teacher, every administrator, every school board member, and the superintendent will join with every parent to inspire the very best in each and every one of our students. May the words spoken here tonight be pleasant and pleasing to you, Lord, while harsh words should be garbled and unintelligible to all who hear. Thank you, Lord, for always hearing our prayers. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Esther Rockwell, and then Wendy Rosen.
My name is Esther Rockwell, and I have been a resident of Sarasota County for 39 years. At last month's meeting on May 7th, the school board rejected the recent changes to the federal Title IX guidelines. These changes would have mandated to allow boys in the girls' bathrooms and showers, and also allow transgender boys to compete against the girls in all their female sports. I heard a recent report that said even the boxing sports would now allow transgender men to compete against the women in this very physical sport. Apparently, we need to teach common sense to people since they no longer know what common sense is. The original Title IX report guidelines state that sex is defined as biological male or biological female, which is only two sexes, an immutable characteristic that cannot be changed, fluid or altered, committed to protect female sports. Of course, the lone dissenting vote came from a board member, Tom Edwards, who represents many people who attend these meetings. We need to thank Bridget Ziegler, Karen Rose, Robin Marinelli, and Tim Enos for their courage to reject the mandated changes to Title IX guidelines. And also, we need to commend them for all the things that they have done to improve the schools. In a recent editorial of the Sarasota Observer, this resolution came in response to the U.S. Department of Education issuing an amendment for new rules and regulations to Title IX that Congress adopted and the President signed in 1972. But as of April 19, the policy bureaucrats in Joe Biden's Department of Education decided to change the law, which means it is legally acceptable for men to think they are women, to participate in women's sports, and shower in women's locker rooms. Meanwhile, the Attorney General's lawsuit to stop the new rules is awaiting a July 1st hearing in U.S. District Court in northern Alabama. This is why it is so important to elect conservative school board members, and you can see why the people condemning our present school board members so that they can again control the board to their own wishes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wendy Rosen, then Leila Newcomb.
I think the previous speaker has not actually read that it has nothing to do with locker rooms and bathrooms for the public's information. First, I'd like to thank Superintendent Connor for his patience throughout the entire past school year. I really do appreciate it, and a lot of us here very much appreciate your professionalism. Thank you. At the last meeting, I shared the Sarasota League of Women Voters School Board Report Card. The League card has now gone viral, spreading needed insight into this board's inability to restore community trust, manage meetings, and even de-escalate conflict. It appears that some of our board members need summer school. How about a class in Robert's Rules of Order? Mr. Duggan, perhaps you could instruct our reluctant board members about the importance of following federal law instead of creating headlines for Governor DeSantis. From board members' comments earlier this year, I would recommend a course on the actual contributions of immigrants and what they make, the contribution that they make to our community. We saw that impact last week when a 12-year-old Tampa student won the Scripps Spelling Bee. His name is Bruhat Soma, one of the easier names to pronounce off of that list of finalists. 9 of the 10 Spelling Bee finalists this year had names that very few of us could easily pronounce. That says a whole lot about immigration. Statistically, children of immigrants are more likely to achieve and succeed when compared to other students. The next time a board member brings up the burden of ESE students and immigrant students, I want you to think about these young, dedicated students, all with dark skin and very bright futures. We all know that giving every child a good start in education means everything. I urge you to work really hard for free, full-time pre-K and free lunches for all students. It's good for the kids, and it certainly helps the parents. And in our state, with the surplus that we have, it should happen. The cost of these two things will pay off in grades, reading skills, and graduation rates. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leila Newcomb, and then Robin Williams.
Greetings, Leila Newcomb, grandma of now 2 in Sarasota Public Schools. My oldest one graduated. I'm very sad. But anyway, and thank you, Mr. Edwards and Mr. Enos, for being part of that amazing moment for me. And so 2 are still going to be around for a few years, so here I am. I'm curious, how many of you have recently reviewed the dictionary definition of conservative, which you all claim to be? Well, I have. Conservative, averse to change or innovation, or holding traditional values, or to conserve. So why is it that 4 of you up there seem bent upon dismantling our tried and true public education system? Do you not see this? First, you vote in for a for-profit charter school, which of course will be draining the system of our public tax dollars. And your so-called reasoning, if we deny it and it gets overridden by the governor, maybe it could cost the district $35,000 in legal fees. Well, really. Yet the recently absolutely unnecessary redistricting wasted $40,000. Still haven't figured out the reason for that one. So now, on the coattails of that comes the resolution with no warning, which, if challenged by the federal government, could cost the district millions, not thousands, millions. So logical, I'm truly puzzled. What happened to caring about money? And children first, really? Academics, I'd personally love to hear more about that, as you all claim to want. In the meantime, do you folks not see what is happening? This may sound a bit radical, but I'm going to say it anyway. The way it appears to me is that you all are a part of a greater plan to destroy our public schools. Admit it. I'd love to believe that some of you actually do care. I think some of you do, but maybe you're so caught up in the culture wars with some loyalties that when it comes to a vote, you just go along with what is expected of you or by some higher authority. So anyway, my older granddaughter is off to New York in the fall, but not before she has a chance to vote. So thank you.
Thank you.
Robin Williams, and then Jennifer Bowles.
Ironically, board members who previously voted for 3-minute speeches to take place at the outset of board meetings now want to limit public comment to specific agenda items and insist anything else wait till the end of the meeting. Why the change? Could it be because most public comments are now favorable to the current majority's actions? It's common courtesy that if a lot of people in the community show up because of a concern, you let them speak first. Speaking to specific agenda items usually happens subsequently. Don't appoint extremist Clayton Taylor to the audit board. His anti-LGBTQ public comments and his anti-immigrant hate, partisan, and profanity-written Facebook posts should exclude him from consideration. Rather than keeping politics out, are certain board members going overboard to bring it in? The majority has lost credibility in claiming to be for every student every day when you voted to defy Title IX. You violated your constitutional officer responsibilities, promoted anti-LGBTQ bigotry with a made-up issue to rile your electoral base at the expense of the safety, health, and well-being of all our children, and risked the loss of tens of millions in federal aid. The strategic plan takes a major step backwards with pre-K. Pre-K should be full-day, universal, and at no cost to parents. Tom Edwards has been the lone voice fighting for universal, free, extended day pre-K. We seem to have a gap analysis for everything. This gap is critical. Research demonstrates it's hard to close the gap if our youngest children start from behind. We can and must do better at a much earlier age. You need to make this a funding priority. Many working parents, including our grossly underpaid teachers, can't afford to pay for pre-K, and they shouldn't have to if we care as much as we claim to. What happened to community schools? 2 superintendents ago, we were all set to embark on this tried and proven method to help Title I schools. It came to a halt. This needs to happen now. Dual language immersion programs are also essential. The Dreamers Academy, which originally wanted to be part of our school system, has demonstrated the success of dual language immersion with area students. We need to replicate this model in our public schools. Vote no on Clayton Taylor and secure funding for universal free all-day pre-K. Also, I was surprised by the arbitrary, without prior notice, obstacles to our rally for Students Before Politics today. It was not in keeping with past practice. It's public property. It hasn't been a safety issue. In fact, security is better closer to our security personnel. It's also a First Amendment violation. We can speak anywhere on public property. I know because I won a case law appellate court, New York, Taub versus the state of New York years ago. It was a different state, but it's First Amendment rights. And there is no security issue there. Thank you.
Jennifer Bowles, and then Carol Lerner.
Good afternoon. I started paying more attention to our school board when my son's local high school failed him for a myriad of reasons. Despite how much I hate public speaking, I have summoned up the courage to speak at these meetings a few times in the past few months. Just because I don't always attend doesn't mean that I'm still not listening at home. Recently, I noticed in the past few school board meetings and workshops, I heard a common theme from Mrs. Rose. You seem convinced of a conspiracy that the public comments are being controlled by a cabal. In fact, Ms. Rose, you continually bash parents who attend these meetings. You accuse us of being part of some well-orchestrated movement, and your accusations are just short of being paranoid and delusional conspiracy theories. So in an effort to clear the air, my name is Jennifer Bowles. I have 2 children in public schools and one who just graduated last month from a local high school. Thank you, Mr. Edwards, for being there. I am not part of any group, organization, club, or institution. I'm just a mom who cares about my kid and their peers, the education of my kids and their peers. Watching you bash parents like us reflects more on you than it does on us. How dare you try to minimize parents who show up here? I'll have you know that my husband a few weeks ago had emergency open heart surgery. Yet I'm here today to speak up for our children in public education. I'm here tonight to make sure that you stop sharing your lies about the parents who show up here at the meetings. The only agenda that I have, Mrs. Rose, is ensuring that my kids and their peers have access to a good public education. I find it incredibly disrespectful for an elected official like you to infer that we don't deserve the same respect as those who align with your political views and agenda. I've always felt that humble servants make the best politicians, and that's why I assume that your many years as an educator would make you a good candidate. But I watch you disrespect parents and the public week after week, and it shows me that you're not a humble servant. You are, in fact, a corrupt politician.
Carol Lerner, and then Tamara Solom.
Carol Lerner, speaking for Support Our Schools. I would like to address Agenda Item 39, the approval of district strategic plan. Overall, I believe it is a thoughtful roadmap for our district. I particularly like that it puts literacy for all students at the center of the plan, saying, quote, "Literacy stands at the foundation from which all other learning builds." It should be supported tonight, although I would have liked to have seen community schools for all Title I schools and district-based dual language immersion programs in it. To me, the most critical initiative, if we are to achieve literacy for all, is early childhood education. I was buoyed by Section 1.1, establish a solid foundation in the strategic plan. I was curious about the district's exploration of new funding sources to keep the preschool programs sustainable. With further research, I was dismayed to learn that one of the braided funding sources, however, came from some parents paying for the extended day. All children will be able to attend the VPK program from 8:30 to 11:30, but only ESE preschoolers and preschoolers from very low income families can attend the 11:30 to 3:30 program at no cost. Families of 4 who make over $55,000 must pay $387 a month. This is going backwards, since in past years, the full-day preschool program was at no cost to families. Studies have shown that quality full-day programs have better outcomes than half-day programs. The truth is that a family of 4 making just over 55 or even 60 or 70,000 can barely make it living in our expensive county, let alone shell out nearly $400 a month. On the way over here on NPR, it said that it takes $90,000 for a family to live comfortably. Well, next year, the number of classrooms and slots for children will expand, which is good news. These charges will restrict access to the extended day for families who can't afford to pay. Seems penny-wise and pound-foolish to charge parents. I realize that ESSER COVID funds have ended, but it is vouchers to private schools and for-profit managed charter schools that are causing budget woes and drives decisions like this one. Early childhood education is a game changer and would save the district millions in remedial and other costs in the end. Did you know that 70% of the baby's brain develops in the first year? To me, we as a district should be moving toward voluntary universal preschool for 3- and 4-year-olds. And as a community, we should be moving towards voluntary universal high-quality infant care. If we do this, Sarasota schools will surpass its literacy goals. Thank you.
Tamara Solom, and then India Miller.
Hi, it's Tamara Solom. I'm from Sarasota. Thank you, Superintendent Connor and school board members. There are a couple of things I want to address. So at the last meeting, while listening to speakers, I enjoyed some boba tea. It was hot outside. I really didn't want to be here, but I showed up just like many of the regular speakers who continue to come to support our public school dollars, supporting public schools. As I tried to suck that last little bit of boba, I was drawn to a speaker who decided to address members of the audience for failing to stand during the presentation of the colors by the color guard. He called audience members the CRT DEI mafia, traitors, haters, and dividers. I was stunned. A couple of audience members tried to address the chair to call for a point of order. They felt it was your job to call out the speaker for violating the rules by addressing the audience and being abusive and disorderly in nature. Instead, Ms. Rose, you admonished the gallery, saying the audience speaking out and bullying a speaker is unacceptable, inappropriate, and really unbecoming. You called for a 5-minute recess. I had been silent, save my boba slurping. I had only heard 2 people speak up. Instead of handling the problem, you added to more derision. I really feel you're not treating speakers equitably. And you can't, perhaps, if you can't, perhaps you need to pass the position on to another board member. This brings me to your new agenda item number 36, under approval of requests to advertise revised board policies. It is for policy number 2.222. Your change in the public speaking policies have become quite cumbersome. You realize now, giving 3 minutes to agenda items and 2 minutes to public comments, you'll be hearing 5 minutes now from many of us. I also want to point out that under C, General Comments 1, it appears you have erroneously copied and pasted from B, Agenda Item Comments. It reads, priority will be given to individuals who are members of the following groups during the Agenda Item Comments portion of the school board meeting: current residents of Sarasota County, parents, guardians of current Sarasota County school student, Sarasota County school employees, and current Sarasota County school students. Members of these designated groups shall be permitted to speak on agenda items prior to other attendees. Of board members wishing to speak that are not members of these groups, priority must be amongst individuals within these designated groups will be on a first-come, first-served basis. In order to obtain the speaker priority outlined in the paragraph, speakers must complete the speaker card for agenda item comments in full. The failure to complete the speaker card in full will result in the loss of such speaker priority for that speaker. I am hoping you will correct this revision prior to voting. General comments do not need to speak to an agenda item. In addition, will you please address whether people not listed in this paragraph will just get their cards put on the bottom of the speaker cards? Thank you. I'm voting on August 20th. Thank you.
India Miller, and then J.T. Pryor.
I'm India Miller, purple hair and feelings, here to speak. Once again, why bother speaking to any other agenda items when the only agenda here is advancing political clout for board members? We speak about our policies, but when we ignore them, what merit, what value do they have? If you have no intention to follow them, why are you even wasting our time and taxpayer dollars discussing them? Why do I make this claim? Well, let me break it down. Your policy, wearing clothing with sexually obscene or explicit and offensive slogans or messages. Yet somehow a t-shirt stating real women aren't men is overlooked. although it refers to gender being defined by sexual organs and is so incredibly offensive to so many people who have brought this to your attention right here, only to be ignored. Why? Your policy, sexual harassment, may involve the behavior of a person of either gender against a person of the same or opposite gender or behavior that is directed at an individual because of that individual's sex, gender identity, or expression, or sexual orientation. Yet somehow, shirts printed and worn specifically to mock and target individuals based on their gender identity are allowed and acceptable behavior under Karen Rose's administration. Totally okay with you, clearly. Your policy, reports or complaints from employees regarding discrimination and harassment based on race, color, religion, ethnic or national origin, age, disability, veteran or military status, marital status, pregnancy, sex, gender identity or expression, or sexual orientation will be investigated for these reports. Yet a desperate attempt to harass and dismiss mothers on Mother's Day who are not real women, not even grammatically correct, according to your board member, is totally allowed. We're not going to have her dismissed. This is okay. These are your policies, supposedly. All three of these egregious policy violations, come from one board member. I don't even want to say her name, but it rhymes with Bridget Ziegler. What are you doing about this? I can see no reason why you're not doing anything about this, except for you have a political agenda. You know, your motto is, if you didn't have an agenda, we wouldn't have advocates. So thank you. Come August 20th, I hope everybody in Sarasota turns out. I hope they pay attention to this. This is really what happens here under your administration. And I'm sorry, Karen, I don't know where you went wrong, because I've met people that have known you for a long time. But this is just not okay. What are we really doing here? Again, why discuss policy? Why discuss anything on your agenda when it means nothing? It means nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, don't come home.
Thank you.
J.T. Pryor, and then Vicki Neiswander.
Good evening. You all have seen me before. I'm J.T. Pryor. I'm a queer minister, a Christian minister at a Rainbow congregation. I always want to highlight that I'm not here out of politics. I'm here because this is a spiritual matter. Speaking up and making people visible who feel invisible is a spiritual matter. It's something that I'm called to do. I'm friends with a lot of teachers in this very district, at Emma E. Booker, at Booker Middle School, at the high schools, and when I ask them, how do you feel about this as an educator? They say, this board does not represent me. They don't care about me, but I go into work every day and I do my job because that's what I'm always going to do. So that's what your own teachers and educators who you're supposed to be advocating for are saying about you. Visibility is something that asks us to open our hearts to difference and then offer our resources to those without. And the negligent actions of this board when it comes to fiscal responsibility, when we're willing to waste public dollars on charter schools, when we're willing to make decisions that would put us in legally really awful situations as a district, that is not making people visible. That's making people invisible because it is defunding public education. And I could go on and list the numbers and figures that many in this room have shared at previous meetings and will probably continue to share because of the actions of this board. We don't seem to learn anything ever. But the proof of your negligence is documented in the dollars lost due to political theater, putting politics over students. I don't think I really need to highlight all of that, but I do want to ask you, are you proud? Do you really think that this is what is serving the students and families of this district? Have you actually listened to the students who come and bravely speak at these meetings? If any of you actually had children in this district, would you still be plotting to defund public education? We're not blind. We see exactly what's going on here. This is a full-blown attack on public education. And I look forward to August 20th to support candidates who will protect our schools and keep public funds in public schools. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vicki Nixwander and Alex Lieberman.
Hello, I'm Vicki Nixwander. I've been a resident of Sarasota County for close to 20 years. Thank you for this opportunity to speak today. I will be brief. As a taxpayer, resident, parent, having my first master's in teaching secondary sciences, being a grant administrator and running programs, and knowing that millions of our tax dollars have left public schools, where is the audit of the changes made? I'm asking you, I'd like to see it at a local level and not have it come down from the state. We deserve to know this. We're the taxpayers here. This experiment with our children and funds must have some accountability. Are our children doing any better? How is that being measured, or is it being measured? Have funds returned to public schools when children return? How many have returned? And why? How are you measuring the quality of education with this experiment? What we see so far is money has left public schools. We are lucky that Sarasota is still growing as property taxes soften the financial strain of losing funds. We see private schools expanding and new ones as well, obviously enjoying their increased income. But are the children benefiting, or just the owners of the schools? You realize there are long-term ramifications to this experiment. Don't kid yourself, nor us. One test score doesn't tell what's going on. Please provide us with a report on the effects of the changes here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Lieberman, and then David Sellers.
Hi everyone, my name is Alex and I'm a student at Pineview School. I commend you, Board, on planning the Every Opportunity 2030 plan. However, there are certain students who will be excluded from reaping the benefits of this plan. First, there is no mention of dual language immersion programs in the proposed plan. Immersion programs like this help students thrive in an English-speaking environment, and every student is entitled to being able to communicate deftly with their peers and teachers. Every student, every day, includes students whose first language is not English. Additionally, free preschool for families, regardless of their income, is an important factor in closing the achievement gap, as a large portion of children's brains develops during preschool years. Unfortunately, the Every Opportunity Plan currently does not include an extension of the free pre-K plan. It would be beneficial to every student in the county if dual language immersion programs and free preschool programs were included throughout the new plan. I am excited to see these changes implemented and new voices heard at the August 20th school board election. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.
David Sellers, and then Jules Rainey.
David Sellers, I'm sorry I passed.
Thank you, sir. Jules Rainey. And then Christy Carwatt.
You get the iPad going here, sorry. Good afternoon, board members, and to our LGBTQ board members, happy Pride. I want to correct some misinformation that was heard at this board meeting earlier today regarding transgender people in sports and in bathrooms. Transgender people have been allowed to compete by the International Olympic Committee since 2004. In the last 20 years, not a single trans woman has made the podium, and none have ever medaled. So trans women taking over sports is not a thing. Okay, in 2021, they even dropped the requirement for medically necessary hormone replacement therapy as a prerequisite for competing. We still don't have any transgender Olympic medalists. Last week, the IOC released a study on trans women and transgender people in general in sports, but transgender women's the one I was focused on because that's the one everyone seems to care about. They found that trans women are at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to competing in sports, in terms of lung capacity, blood oxygenation, and in terms of bone density. And this puts them at a competitive disadvantage compared to non-transgender women in sports. That was the Olympic Committee's findings. Regarding bathrooms and locker rooms, the Williams Institute at UCLA School of Law released a study in 2018 that said that trans-inclusive bathroom policies and locker room policies are not significant in terms of a safety risk for non-transgender women. Okay, there's no evidence to support the claim that trans women are a threat to anyone in bathrooms. When it comes to assault, sexual assault, when it comes to indecent exposure, that's always been illegal, no matter who you are, how you identify, or where you are using the bathroom or locker room, okay? Trans women existing in a space is not inherently dangerous to anyone. In fact, the study found that trans women in particular are at a higher risk, 4 times higher than their cisgender peers when it comes to being victims of assault or attack in bathrooms and locker rooms. We are the victims here, not the perpetrators. Anyways, back to what I was really going to say. It goes without saying that this school board should be role models to the students they are entrusted to serve. This is especially important when it comes to protecting them from harassment and discrimination in school. Last month, 4 of you voted to ignore federal Title IX anti-discrimination laws, which would protect students from harassment on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. And I want you to consider 3 things about that. First, what's the message you're sending as role models to the students in this district when you sign a resolution to violate federal law? I'm voting.
Thank you. Thank you.
Christy Carwat, and then Shelby Nagel.
Good evening. I am Christy Carwat, and I thought I was just a former parent and a retired Sarasota County teacher. But I guess since I'm one of those who attends these meetings regularly because I truly care about public education in our community, I can also be considered an activist, or at least that's how Mrs. Rose labels people like me. I'm here to speak about public comments and to address the proposal to change the public comment policy. I understand the board's desire to try to shorten the meetings because many of them are quite lengthy. I have no problem with moving general comments to the end of the meeting, but I do have a problem with limiting them to 2 minutes. It is difficult to get a point across in just 2 minutes. The limitation of the time allotted for public comments, along with the demeanor of some of this board during public comments, leads me to think that several on this board don't care what many of their constituents have to say. Mrs. Rose addressed what she considered poor behavior of those in the audience during the last meeting. So I want to point out the poor behavior of some members of this board during public comment. One thing I was taught at a very young age, Mrs. Rose, was that it was rude not to look at someone directly when they were speaking to you, as you are doing right now. Because you do so, when you don't look at them, you show complete disinterest in what the speaker has to say. Some of you on the board appear to not have been taught that lesson because some of you never look directly at the speakers when they address you. Never. Mrs. Rose indicated in a workshop that there were other ways to address the board besides making a public comment. I assume she meant via email. The night of the last meeting, I emailed you, Mrs. Rose. At the end of the email, I asked that you send a response so I'd know that you had read the email. I got nothing. If you aren't going to read emails from constituents with whom you disagree, then it's important that we are allotted more than 2 minutes at board meetings to share our concerns with the board. Otherwise, how will you know about our concerns? I also want to point out the inconsistency in enforcement of rules during public comments. It is my understanding that speakers are not to address audience members. Yet during the last meeting, Mrs. Rose allowed one speaker to do just that when he called 2 members of the audience, members of the CRT, DEI, Mafia, and said those who sit for our flag are traitors, haters, and dividers because of their behavior. Yet, Mrs. Rose, when a speaker addressed the widely reported behavior of one of the board members, you shut her down. This inconsistency reeks of political bias and unethical behavior. It is time for you to walk the talk. So please, give us 3 minutes to share our concerns during general comment. And Mrs. Rose, since you can't be consistent and nonpartisan in implementing rules and policy, I encourage everyone to go vote on August 20th. And you know who I'm voting for, and it's not Mrs. Rose.
Thank you.
Shelby Nagel, and then Nicole Walkowitz.
Good evening, Board. My name is Shelby, and I'm a Sarasota resident. I want to start by saying Happy Pride Month and Happy Freedom Summer, I guess. I showed up excited to celebrate this new holiday by exercising my right to free speech in the pre-meeting rally, which was relegated to the back corner of the parking lot far away from the building, without informing us prior. Different reasons were provided to different individuals as to why it wasn't allowed to happen. We were going to block handicap parking, we weren't, and it was against statutes, which don't exist. It felt disorganized and like just another method to silence the opposition of the legislation put into place by this school board. There are important issues on the agenda today, including the Every Opportunity 2030 plan. The previous work by Tom Edwards to ensure a free extended day pre-K program is undone by this initiative, causing great harm to impoverished and even middle-class populations that cannot afford to pay for a full day of child care. The Florida Department of Education considers the first 5 years of a child's life as the most important time for learning. If taxpayer funding isn't being utilized for something so foundational to the next generation, where's it going? Anyways, this summer marks the beginning of another election season. Campaign signs are popping up all around our community in preparation. Each time I pass one of Karen Rose's re-election signs with the phrase "Children First," I find myself workshopping her slogan in my head to better represent her approach to chairing the school board. Children of party-aligned families first sounds more fitting, although the board is required to represent all constituents. Our taxpayer money is being blatantly spent on political initiatives that increase disproportionality of access to resources within minority and impoverished populations in the name of politics. Community members are tuning into school board meetings and are becoming more aware of and angered by this disparity. Like them, I'm excited for the school board election coming up on August 20th, when this community will have a real chance of being heard. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nicole Walkowitz, and then Jason Champion.
Hello, my name is Nicole Volkevich, and I'm going to start off with a quote from Mrs. Rose. An initiative to improve the performance of special education students, low-income students, and underrepresented students that is monitored for success and adjusted accordingly. Do you recognize this statement, Mrs. Rose? This was made by you, and despite my gripes, I agree completely. Unfortunately, you've spent your entire career undermining this statement, and you end up just saying something that I find completely destroys any good intentions presented. You said, and I quote, "expand school choice options within traditional Sarasota County public schools." Mrs. Rose, private education and for-profit charter school education, both of which you voted to expand in this county, do not correspond with your original vision, especially when you have not voted on any accountability measures for charter or private schools who fall back on the accommodations and acceptances of Black, brown, and disabled students. I once again ask you, how can these beliefs correspond together? How can they work when you have put no real effort into real change for these same students? As a disabled Latina, I worry for the new wave of students coming to Sarasota County. I worry for the students who come in after becoming immunocompromised from nonstop COVID infections, the students who need mobility aids, the students with cognitive disabilities such as myself, the students who will be blown off by administrators who refuse to test them for disabilities and let them slip through the cracks. I worry about those students, the white disabled students, the Black disabled students, the Latino disabled students, the Asian disabled students, the Arab disabled students, all of whom exist in this district and should all equally be supported. Mrs. Rose, I would strongly suggest you do more research into these institutions instead of making blanket statements to appeal to as many voters as possible. Because yes, there are private schools that exist to accommodate disabled students, and I do believe parents should have access to them. However, there are very real issues that you, as a board, need to address before you use our money and give it to schools that may discriminate against every student every day.
Thank you.
Jason Champion, and then Connie Bruni.
Is that on? Can you hear me? Okay. Jason Champion, Sarasota resident of 18 years. Integrity is a quality best on being on honesty and having moral integrity, principles, and strong, upright behavior. This should be a bare minimum of an elected official, especially when it comes to educating the youth and the youth that look up to you as an example. They have and are receiving very mixed messages of what is acceptable. I had the opportunity this year to help fundraise and issue scholarships to students from graduating classes here in Sarasota. And recently they had an overwhelming message that said, "Thank God we're done," because they did not feel safe and conflicted. So I have something very specific to say to those students. In times of challenge, it's crucial to remember that incredible strength, resilience, and love that define us. We have faced adversity before, and each time we have emerged stronger and more united. Our community is built on the principles of acceptance, diversity, and pride, and it is those principles that will carry us through any storm. Remember that you're not alone. We are family bonded together by sharing experiences and our unwavering support of one another. Every one of you brings something unique and beautiful to this community, and your presence makes us all stronger. Let's continue to stand together, lift each other up, and spread the love and positivity. Reaching out and connecting and sharing stories because of their voices are powerful, and the unity is unstoppable. Together we will overcome any obstacle and continue to build a world where everyone can live authentically and proudly. Stay strong, stay proud, and know that you're loved. But I want to go back to where I said integrity. Tim, you had a job of protect and serve. Let's figure that out again. Tom, thank you for showing integrity. Robin, you're highly educated and your parents raised you with better morals than you're acting now. Karen, we're in Sarasota. I don't know what your morals are. Please try to find them. Bridget, happy Pride. Stop grooming your husband to be a predator.
Connie Bruni, and then Anya Dennison.
Good evening, and thanks for having me. I'm Connie Bruni. I am a Sarasota resident. I realized today it's been 10 years since we moved here permanently, so I'm excited. I had a difficult time today. I went through all 518 pages of the agenda, and I could not find item number 3, any of the items in the consent agenda. There's nothing. There's a cover page and then nothing. So I was a little concerned about that. So I don't know what you're voting on as far as your consent agenda, so I can't comment on that. The other thing I could not find, which was very important to me, is item number 39, the strategic plan. I could not find it behind item number 39 today, nor could I find it in the May 21st minutes. So I'd really like to see it. I am excited that it says the plan is designed to drive improvements in student outcomes, support professional development, and foster community engagement. I was very excited to see that. At least we're getting away from different ideology being pushed on people rather than focusing on academics. I appreciate that very much. Item number 37, which is Clayton Taylor, is a stellar designee to the Audit Selection Committee, and I reject any suggestion that he has used profanity. I know him personally, and it is not in his nature to do so. So if he reposted something that had something, that's possible, but I reject any suggestion that he used profanity. I also want to commend you as a collegial body together to pass the resolution to reject the Biden administration's attempts to redefine terms in a more than almost 50-year-old statute and stop the federal overreach. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anya Dennison, and then August Ray.
Hi, I'm Anya, a graduate of Sarasota Schools. Happy Pride! I've talked to you before about how you've failed as a board to protect queer students, and I will do it again today. I talked about how if you read the Don't Say Gay settlement, you'll see that every single thing that the Don't Say Gay law changed in our public schools over the last 2 years has been reverted back. That means that so many of the reasons that school environments have been harming your students have been legally reversed, but because we haven't seen any communication about this or any implementation in schools, those things haven't changed. Parents and students still don't know about the change. Schools still aren't safe, even though they can and should be, according to the law. The majority of your constituents don't know that their educational experiences now, as of this settlement, have the ability to be drastically improved and healed. They deserve a board that they can count on to relay this important information to them. And you could be that board. You can discuss this settlement and information gap in a workshop. You could listen to the feedback you receive and talk about how you can better inform the district's constituents, because the decision deeply affects students, parents, teachers, and their day-to-day experiences in the schools that you oversee. I also told you all about how the resolution rejecting the new Title IX regulations puts the Sarasota County School District at a necessary risk for loss of federal funding for no academic reason and with no way to legally enact it. So rejecting this resolution offered the Sarasota County School Board an opportunity to let the state and federal government fight over culture war issues while we focus on the success and safety of Sarasota students. The opportunity was not taken. Not only did passing this resolution provide a very clear signal to Sarasota's queer and trans students that they are not supported by the board, but it now risks vital programs that operate off of federal funding, including free and reduced lunch. You ignore your students when they tell you they feel unsafe and uncared for, fail to create any solutions that support their well-being, and instead of denouncing legislation that denies them their humanity, you applaud and uphold it. For months now, you've had so many students stand up here and tell you that they're hurting, that going to school in this district is painful, and they are only here because they want to work to make their daily experiences in school better, or at least no longer harmful. Otherwise, why would they come to the board? Please put students before politics and spend your time addressing the real issues our students are facing and telling you about to your face every 2 weeks. And please attempt to provide a thoughtful reason for us to not be able to rally outside of the board instead of offering multiple conflicting reasons after the fact. Thank you, and again, happy Pride.
Thank you.
August Ray, and then Xander Moritz.
Hello, my name is August Ray, and I graduated from Sarasota High School a little less than 2 weeks ago. I've spent the past 7 months showing up to these board meetings as a student, trying to give my feedback to the board to little to no avail, which is why I'm using this opportunity to remind the board that we as students have the most to gain and the most to lose from your decisions. We are the ones who live under these changes on a daily basis, while everyone else, even those who have children in schools, are afforded the luxury of not being directly impacted by the actions of the board. That's why I appreciate Tom Edwards' efforts to hear student perspectives. He recently invited me and other students to speak at a panel to talk about things that we felt were important in schools, from school safety in the face of gun violence, to updated career resources for those who don't want to pursue college, to the lack of sex education in high schools and how that fosters unhealthy and disrespectful relationships between our students. He is the only board member who has made efforts to platform and listen to our students, and I'm excited to see what comes from this panel. But more importantly, I urge other board members to host these student-led panels and work to implement policy based on the feedback given. I believe all school board members should host panels like these because they allow students to voice their feedback to the board. But they also help students develop confidence, improve public speaking skills, foster a passion for civic engagement, and provide opportunities for students to gain real experience that helps them further their own careers, whether it be another line on a resume or something that sets them apart from other students while applying to college. If there's anything I've learned in school, it's that you have something to learn from every person you meet. And I wholeheartedly hope the rest of the board can learn from Tom how to value and validate student experiences and broadcast and bolster student voices. No matter where you stand politically, it is important that you learn from the actions of others. Whether you agree with the person or not, there's always something to learn from others, and I hope our board utilizes this opportunity to learn from others. If we expect it in the halls of our classrooms, we should accept it in the walls of our boardrooms. Lead by example. Providing conflicting information about the parameters of our rally without notice and without reason is not leading by example. Silencing student voices is not leading by example. And preventing opportunities for our community to learn from the words and stories of others is not leading by example. You know what is leading by example? Actually listening to our rally's message and taking an opportunity to learn from your constituents who you are supposed to represent, whether you agree with them or not.
Thank you.
Xander Moritz, and then Deborah Hayes.
Over the last 7 months, the Sarasota community has showed up to every single school board meeting to ask that you do better. You have heard from Sarasota teachers, past and present, Sarasota students, past and present, parents of Sarasota students, past and present, and you've addressed none of their concerns. In fact, you've stated that you don't have to listen to people's concerns because you are elected to office, and so you and your policies must be popular. Unfortunately, while the platforms you ran on to get elected were popular, the actions you've taken and the policies you've put into place since being elected are not. Nobody could run on a platform of spending tens of thousands of dollars on unnecessary redistricting, banning books and private email threads, bringing in an anti-black curriculum firm or trying to, funneling millions of taxpayer dollars from public schools into private ones, and disregarding, disrespecting your students, and then win an election. Karen, Bridget, Robin, Tim, the platforms y'all ran on directly contradict your actions on this board. In fact, 3 of y'all ran on protecting your right to public comment, our right to public comment, and since then, you've all discussed ways you can restrict public comment now that you don't like what the community has to say about your actions. Karen, you ran on protecting all students and on being fiscally responsible. And you voted on a resolution that puts a large portion of your students in danger and puts the district at risk of losing $50 million by Bridget's estimate. You know what nobody ran on? Nobody ran on removing Superintendent Brendan Aswin, who's supported by 90% of our community, as the very first action of this board. But that was your very first action as this board, and it cost us all taxpayer dollars as well. Under the leadership of Bridget Ziegler and now Karen Rose, this board has adopted what has become a pattern of saying one thing and then spending taxpayer dollars to do another. And while our community calls on you to stop this pattern, you ignore them. You literally tell them to go home. You tell them that they don't know what they're talking about. You cut them off while they're talking to you. And now you work as a group to discuss ways that you can actually take away our ability to talk to you at all. But all of this pales in concern to your biggest problem. You've decided that you don't have to listen to anyone who didn't vote for you, but your job is to serve Sarasota students. And 0 Sarasota County students were old enough to vote for you in the last school board election. None of our students could vote for you. They all have to talk with you and speak with you and do their best to get what they need from you. Your job is to serve every student every day, not the 17% majority of the 30% of adults who voted for you in 2022. So when students come to you for 7 boring, difficult months and beg you for help, they're doing so not because they think this is fun or because you actually care, but because there's nothing else for them to do.
Thank you.
Deborah Hayes, and then Jenna Holmes.
Good evening, board members, Mr. Connor, council. My name is Deb Hayes. For months now, I've come to these meetings only to hear the public repeatedly ask for the board's commitment to every student every day. Let's be clear. That cry is for all students, LGBTQ students, immigrants, disabled, minority, to have every needed resource every day. Moreover, the cry is for each of those students to feel valued, encouraged, safe, and legitimized by the entire district. The decision of the majority board several weeks ago to publicly state that some students protected by Title IX regulations were not worthy of that protection went against everything that the board is supposed to be about and against everything that the public has been requesting. But it's not too late to mitigate the damage that's been done by that action. Mr. Enos reminded us at the last board meeting that the board has an anti-bullying policy that protects students from harassment and other adverse acts. Mr. Enos, I studied that policy and it is very good. However, that's activated after the fact when the damage has already been done. That doesn't set the district stage and culture and milieu of a total acceptance of students, staff, and families. We in Sarasota have always prided ourselves in setting best practice. And if we couldn't set it, we prided ourselves in following others' best practices with fidelity. I've looked at other districts and how they are handling issues, particularly of the LGBTQ constituents, and I found that Sarasota is way behind other districts. Other districts put up front and center their affirmation of support for all, regardless of sex, gender orientation, and gender identity. They have published documents explaining to staff, students, parents, and the community how students with gender identity challenges are to be supported and assisted. They have developed procedures consistent with law that promote non-discrimination and set a tone of welcome and encouragement for each student. They've provided ready resources for those students and families needing assistance and safety when they're struggling with gender and identity issues. It's there, right on their district website. It's not hidden in some kind of school counselor's office. Hillsborough, Miami-Dade, Leon, Duval, and other school districts have affirmed publicly and loudly that they do support all students every day, and they have provided mechanism to show that support. Mr. Edwards at the last meeting gave some hope and encouragement to the public that the superintendent does in fact walk the talk of every student every day. This board could go a long way in asserting to the public that they mean what they say and they prioritize.
Thank you.
Jenna Holmes, and then Julie Forstier.
Hello, everyone. Happy Pride. My name is Jenna Holmes, and I'm an alumni of the Sarasota County School System. My mother is a veteran ESC teacher in Sarasota, and I'm a parent with a child entering the school system next year. Let my speech be on behalf of me and my mother, Mary Holmes, who unfortunately could not make it today. I think I can speak for almost everyone in here who doesn't have a hidden political agenda up their sleeve, that we, the constituents, are sick of battling the disease of politics infiltrating our public school system. I'm tired of being disappointed with the actions of this school board. There's been so much negative media coverage and national drama surrounding these meetings and the actions of the board, and I'm done with my town being the center of the circus ring. Over and over again, your constituents have pled with you to keep politics out of our educational system, and we are being laughed at and ignored. While it is immensely frustrating for us, it is hurting our local youth the most, and you seem to not care. Your political agendas come before the students, and that is an injustice to our youth and overall community. Public dollars are for public schools, and students deserve and need to come before politics. I think we'd all like to see the board focus away from party politics and instead spend our tax dollars on creating policies that address declining enrollment and academic achievement for all. How about stop telling kids to read more and then banning vital access to books that will teach them important topics and life lessons? How about stop belittling your constituents that bring attention to issues at these board meetings and then characterizing them as political activists and not as the constituents you were elected to serve? I cannot sit complacent while the board continues to attempt to push an extremist anti-public education agenda. Cut the politics out and go back to doing your job as the constitutional officers you are elected to be and serve this community for the better by improving education for all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie Forstier, and then Madison Ponder.
I'm here today as a parent, taxpayer, and your constituent, and I would like to remind you it is your job to represent me, even if you may not agree with me. There have been statements by members of this board who are trying to create a narrative that this board was voted in by a majority of Sarasota County voters, and so you have some kind of mandate to do whatever you want to do. I think it's sad, but also necessary, that I need to break this down for you. In the last election, we had 30% voter turnout. The current board members won by up to 58% of the vote. That means that less than 18% of voters in this county voted for you. This is not a mandate. Furthermore, since you all started implementing what can only be called an anti-public education agenda, this community has shown up to let you know we don't support the actions of this board. Unfortunately, that hasn't changed your actions. Under the leadership of Chair Rose, this board has failed to take any meaningful action toward protecting our A-rated school district from the defunding and destruction of public education that the state of Florida seems determined to pursue. Instead, Chair Rose is pushing this board in a direction that not only compromises our district's fiscal solvency, but that also puts our district at legal risk while further compromising the integrity of our schools. From supporting 2 for-profit charter schools that extract critical resources from our school district without providing any additional benefits, to failing to oppose the universal voucher bill, which has siphoned over $10 million in its first year out of the school district and is on track to more than double this next year, to firing Superintendent Asplin, which cost the district upwards of $500,000, to supporting the needless redistricting, which cost the district upwards of $50,000, to the Title IX resolution that put free and reduced lunches at risk. I could go on and on, but you get my point. The only member on this board that stands in sharp contrast to the rest of you and is actually working to protect and promote public education in this district is Tom Edwards. Thank you, Tom. I'm here today because I'm tired of not being listened to by this board. I'm left to believe that the only thing that's left for us to do as a community is to vote. Please, everyone, and get out and vote on August 20th, and if you haven't re-requested your mail-in ballots yet, please do that ASAP. Since I still have some time, I want to address you, Ms. Marinelli, on the appointment of Clayton Taylor to the Audit Committee. Surely, when you nominated him, there was no way you could have been aware of the hateful anti-immigrant and anti-LGBTQ rhetoric that he has been spouting in public comments and on his social media pages. And now you, Mr. Enos, you said you want to take politics out of the school board at the end of the last meeting, and I really want to believe you. Voting to confirm Clayton Taylor certainly doesn't do that. This is your opportunity to do exactly.
Thank you.
Madison Ponder, and then Bill Hayes.
My name is Madison Ponder. I am a former Pineview student who graduated in 2021. As a former Florida student, I am disgusted and saddened to see the state of Florida schools. In fact, I am so outraged, I have decided to major in gender studies and dedicate my undergraduate thesis to the failure of the Florida government to provide quality education. Our school board has proposed a 2030 strategic plan whose core pillars include student achievement and support. These pillars are impossible to uphold within the current political environment. I was lucky to escape this restrictive educational policy such as HB 1557, but my friends and family have not. My sister's school library was closed for almost a year. My school's national ranking has dropped. The classes I took in high school have been restricted and censored. All of this has been done with the justification of fostering quality education and ensuring appropriateness. These changes have nothing to do with quality education when critical subjects for school student development like sociology and sex education are absent from schools. This has nothing to do with supporting students when LGBTQ+ students are taught their identities are not real and their love is sinful. This has nothing to do with appropriateness when far more morose topics are taught to children who are just beginning to learn arithmetic. It is not about the obscenity of attraction when children's books ends with marriage and a kiss. It is not even about omitting topics of sex when there are books like What Makes a Baby by Corey Silverberg aimed at preschool readers. It cannot be about quality education when the definition of a sex binary previously read by another speaker has been proven to be scientifically inaccurate time and time again by intellectuals such as Judith Butler and Nellie Olchorn. Creating schools that support students and foster their achievement are goals that should be worked toward. But it is not possible when critical subjects are omitted and when our school board members look at the students that come here with contempt when they ask for your action. It is not possible for schools to be quality when classes are omitted and LGBTQ+ students are taught to be silent. If school boards wish to achieve its 2030 strategic plan, you should begin with making schools a place where students can be curious and they can be themselves. You must put our students before your politics. Our students continue to thrive and share their love with pride. No thanks to you.
Thank you.
Bill Hayes, and then Ron Springman.
I'm Bill Hayes, back again. And I'm here because I haven't heard how you as a school board have implemented any sort of action to add dollars for the county schools, given that the state has made it legal to effectively steal our county money in the form of vouchers. You were elected to take care of our county money. Seems to me that every county in the state would be banding together, that you would be talking to all counties in an effort to overturn Tallahassee and keep the money that was designed and is supposed to be here. And then just one second thing. And the school board attorney, I'm just kind of wondering, is he really relevant with his cautious advice? Seems to have no bearing on any of the major decisions that are being made. And, you know, in my day, I would vote to have made sure that I got a $50 million and then had them ask for it back. I would never have turned it down. That's money for this school district, period. And since it was voted down, obviously, you've got a replacement for it, maybe. And we'd like to hear what the replacement is in case we don't get it.
Ron Springman, and then Lieutenant Colonel Duff Smiley.
Ron Springman, an independent voter. The Pride community gives positive contributions to society. For example, the winner of this year's voice competition was Ashner Havan, a black man and the first gay to ever win the voice with one of the greatest renditions of I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston. So with that being said, DeSantis' anti-gay bill and stating slaves acquired skills from their white masters is downright despicable. It was the descendants of black slaves who gave us the musical foundation for rock and roll. My two kids who attend Venice and Pineview Elementary have been on the honor roll for the last 5 years of their lives, are very aware of current events and what's happening on this school board. At such a young age, never in my wildest dreams did I expect I would have to explain sex education after they asked me what LGBTQ means and why a married member of a school board actually falls within the lesbian, gay, and bi community. I explained to them the most likely reason a gay woman shares her husband in sex with the same gender is most likely they don't love one another, have lost their way, and will probably end up in divorce because it goes against their moral Christian teachings. I also had to tell them of the horrors of predatory adults who kidnap children for human trafficking or worse. Because of this politically biased board, they have put this district in damage mode, and passing Ziegler's resolution against their attorney's advice speaks volume. And my take is they did it for political purposes for the upcoming elections and also to give Trump ammunition, because he may lose this state, especially after his felony convictions. Bridget, it is obvious to me you have taken the carrot from corrupt organized crime actors of this state and elsewhere and should step down immediately, if not for our community, then for turning your own life around. Prior to COVID, these school board meetings had almost no speakers, but since COVID and this current school board, it has been nothing but political chaos, which all started with DeSantis and Trump's rhetoric of hate and division. When I return for the next meeting, it will be to discuss my military and government background and why, in my opinion, organized crime influences this country and this state, including the education of our nation's children. To the voters of this district and state, I say, if you want political chaos, hate, lies, and autocracy, vote red. But if you want to have rationality, truth, prosperity, and saving democracy, vote blue.
Lieutenant Colonel Duff Smiley, and then Sebastian Martinez.
My name is Smiley, and I was an Air Force pilot. I was a member of General Motors Diversity Council for 6 years. I adopted and fostered 23 children. Today, in the shadows of Memorial Day, I would like to talk about another pilot and a personal hero, Jesse Brown. In America, we are blessed to live in a country where your limits are not bounded by who your father was or the circumstances you were born into. Jesse Brown is an example of this. As an African American, he overcame nearly insurmountable barriers to become the first African American aircraft carrier pilot. Ultimately, he gave his life serving his country during combat in the Korean War. Jesse is an example to all Americans, and our school needs to reinforce the patriotism, love of his country, and the opportunity and the unity that Jesse represents. It is a shame that Americans do not know about Jesse Brown's courage, more Americans do not know, and of his achievements despite coming from meager beginnings. Our children need to know Jesse's story and what he overcame and the unifying person that he was. Sadly, they do not. Hopefully, they will. Thursday is June 6th and the anniversary of World War II. I believe we need a new day in Sarasota County to bring our children together and quit separating them based on different outward appearances. We will never achieve inclusion and unity by categorizing and separating and teaching some of our students that they have no opportunity, contrary to the example of Jesse Brown. In 2 previous meetings, some have chosen to sit for the same flag that Jesse Brown fought and died for. Those who sat in disrespect of our flag have been identified as supporters of one of our board members. This board member and his followers believe that we need to indoctrinate our children with CRT, DEI, LGBTQ ideologies that separate our kids and, I believe, promote disrespect for our flag. This group believes that 4 of our board members are supporting only majority children, neglecting, and in some cases endangering minority children. The facts do not support that assumption. Board members who do not agree with separating our students are labeled haters and homophobes. I believe that what a person does is more important than what a person looks like. We need to pay more attention to what unifies us and less attention to what divides us. Do not allow Tom Edwards and his supporters to poison the minds of our children. Let the majority of Sarasota County send a loud message in August that we will not tolerate separating and indoctrinating our children, that we will not allow any child to be told that they are limited by their birth certificate.
Thank you.
Sebastian Martinez, then Casanova Doherty.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board, Mr. Superintendent, audience members, and those watching home or abroad. My name is Sebastian Martinez, and I'm a graduate of Booker High School. Happy Pride. 40% representation on a board is really good. And I agree with the former speaker on recognizing World War II's anniversary on the 6th. First, I really wanted to touch on our strategic plan, and I wanted to read over it, but like Ms. Bruni, I couldn't find a copy of it. But I did want to stress the need to expand and have dual language immersion programs to our middle school and high schools. We need to be proactive in providing resources and hiring and retaining qualified certified staff to help alleviate hurdles when it comes to our ESOL population, and ensuring that those students and families aren't left behind. And I have so much more on that topic, but I can't go on without constantly addressing the actions of this board and specifically Ms. Rose. Ms. Rose and Robin constantly belittle members of this community, teachers, students, and parents. And it's not out of sincerity, it's divisive political strategy. And Ms. Rose, I don't know if you remember the last time people like yourself were in power and were so against marginalized communities and tried to dirty the word activist, but you weren't in the right. Ms. Rose, I want to share my insight with you because I don't find it fair to discredit and shrug off your constituents who don't agree with you, as an elected official of an educational body who serves students, teachers, and parents of all backgrounds. You often go after public commenters exercising the First Amendment right and shut down speakers, but what you don't see or seem to blatantly ignore is that those speakers are teachers, parents, and students, not just Democrats or liberals or whatever you want to call them. What you don't see is the mother of 3 kids rushing to put together a speech after dropping her children off while listening to the board workshop and trying to formulate a response as to why she thinks this board should focus on her kids' education and not wasting tax dollars on pointless items. What you don't see is the student shaking out of fear to come publicly speak because they're scared that your team will harass them online and put them or their parents' jobs or personal safety at risk. What you don't see is a teacher saying that they want to attend but can't because they're scared that they'll lose their job. What you don't see is all these organizers talk about all their personal experiences in our school system and all the amazing ideas and innovative solutions they have to fix them. So no, these speakers are not just Democrats or political. They're constituents you are supposed to tirelessly serve and should be exhausted from listening to day in and day out. Rose, the issue I have with you and your style of leadership is that it's pitting our community against each other. But I know this doesn't just come from you. Your campaign treasurer, Eric Robinson, the Prince of Dark Money, is literally known for bringing in millions of dollars of national out-of-state PAC money to influence local elections and create divisive, toxic political climates. I know so many of these conservative speakers have amazing ideas in education and personal stories to give that are imperative for you to hear, but their experiences, suggestions, and feedback should be equally as valuable as mine and anybody who speaks at this room. What's important to note as well is that these meetings online are vastly different from in person. Online, you might see Ms. Rose chastise the audience and say we're bullying speakers, and in person, you'll see she's talking to a quiet room. Thank you for...
Casanova Dartry, and then Alex Dartry.
Hi, I'm a former student at Booker High School. I say former, not because I graduated, but because I dropped out into an online learning program during the final quarter of my junior year, despite my glowing test scores and promising future in the ACE program. I dropped out, not because of a lack of effort or intellect, but because incessant bullying propagated by my peers throughout my school career due to my identity as a transgender man. This, on all accounts, should never have been allowed to happen, period. I was so hopeful when the Title IX resolution passed that even though I wasn't part of the school system anymore, maybe my fellow transgender peers would at least be afforded some amount of protection. That, of course, didn't happen, but that's besides the point. Going to Booker, both middle and high, everyone knew at least a few kids who either didn't speak English as their first language or were still in the process of learning English. This is not one or two nameless, faceless people. These are a huge number of students at risk of not being educated in a way they understand. You love to tout our reading scores, but how are we supposed to maintain high reading scores if we're teaching people in a language they don't fully speak? The overall strategy for every opportunity in 2030 is a step in the right direction, but it baffles me that even when you are handed a dual language plan on a silver platter, you still fail to include it in your strategy. Public dollars are supposed to be for public schools, full of all types of kids who all equally deserve an education and a chance in the world. I'm happy that maybe in the upcoming election there's a chance for the well-being of all students to be taken into account instead of repetitive political drivel. Happy Pride Month, Board.
Alex Doherty, and then Bill Neese.
My name is Alex, and I'm a student at Suncoast Polytechnical High School. As someone who is directly impacted by the board's decisions, my opinion matters. As of late, you, Ms. Rose, have been consistently pushing and enabling policies that are utterly irresponsible. For instance, voting to disregard changes in Title IX could deprive public schools of over $50 million in crucial funding for free and reduced lunches and other such necessary programs. Public dollars are for public schools, not for being wasted on useless political stunts, which should never be prioritized over students. Regarding present and future matters, it is important to address every opportunity 2030. While it is a generally solid plan, it has several problems. It fails to fulfill critical needs such as dual language immersion. This is so important for students whose first language isn't English. Ms. Rose, we all know how you love to talk about the county's reading scores. Not providing support to people who might still be learning English will absolutely make these scores plummet. I hope you will consider adjusting the strategic plan to address these issues. Sadly, I cannot vote in the August 20th election. I have to rely on my community to vote in my stead. However, I am hopeful that I can finally have a school board that actually represents what the students of Sarasota County want. Happy Pride Month.
Thank you.
Bill Neese, and then Jessica Thomason.
Hello, my name is Bill Neese, and I am a resident, grandfather of a couple of kids in the school district, businessman, pastoral leader in our community, member of the board of directors of the regional detention facility. I've worked with children and youth for over 50 years, so I'm not a novice here. And my topic might be called GLAD. The Sarasota School District is on a renewed course towards higher achievement that has both intentionally set and was both intentionally set and directed by this school board, superintendent, and staff. This has taken place after the dismantling of misguided strategic plan and the implementation of an effective revised district plan. In his brief year in social media report, Superintendent Connor gave an outline of the multiple accomplishments and highlights that have taken place over the past academic year. When one thinks about it, it's like a small city being transported, educated, encouraged, fed, challenged, cared for, and yes, sometimes even having the occasional scraped knee bandaged. The motto, every student, every day, is more than words. No one can fully express or visualize the full impact or reach of this past year, but one can have a respect for the hard work and dedication that has accomplished it. I am one citizen who can attest to this small miracle that happens day after day. However, I represent tens of thousands of other citizens who believe this as well. One might ask, how can I make such a statement? Because the majority of this board was voted into place by those tens of thousands to do what is being done. Our able superintendent was chosen, and all can see the wisdom and results of that choice. Leadership matters, and I am thankful for the current and anticipated results of the board and executive leadership. Leadership corrects known weaknesses, anticipates future issues, and makes plans to secure that future. Most of this last year, we have heard in this chamber the constant drumbeat of rancor, anger, misinformation, and sometimes slanderous accusations. However, I offer another perspective. In the well-known work of children's literature, a young girl named Pollyanna, and if you want to call me Pollyanna, I'll take it, constantly sought to spread the knowledge of her favorite game, the GLAD game. Maybe Pollyanna's GLAD game might not be such a bad principle to follow in this present setting. So don't be discouraged, because for at least a small portion of what you hear today, I choose to speak encouragement, thanks, and a blessing.
Thank you.
Jessica Thomason, and then Elizabeth Bornstein.
I have a confession. I don't remember voting in 2022. I was not politically engaged, and I never have been, although I was a registered Republican until last year. And I only became engaged in November 2022 after being discouraged by this district from celebrating the anniversary of Ruby Bridges, the first child to integrate public schools in the South, and being told to save it for Black History Month. As you can imagine, I was stunned by this. People said, you got to watch out for this new board. You're going to target your school. You're going to get the superintendent fired. I was like, what are you talking about? And as you can imagine, all the parents who were looking forward to this event were also stunned. And so I started paying attention, and my friends did, and my friends who are teachers and parents. And week after week, it became clear to us that there was no misunderstanding. This board really was an extreme board. And since that time, it has been one extreme take after another. The superintendent was in fact fired. I guess somebody had ESP or something, I don't know. Shutting down free speech at the high school last year. Today, shutting down a youth group for having a peaceful rally. Can't have that. Unnecessary gerrymandering of this district. I know Karen has stepped out, and maybe she's hearing this from the back, I don't know, a divisive Title IX resolution that only serves to divide our community more. And now I recently heard that Karen has signed a Pledge of Allegiance to Moms for Liberty, a certified hate group. Is this true, Karen? Hopefully she's hearing me from the bathroom, I don't know. You shut down dialogue. You're not interested in building bridges. If Tom, our only moderate school board member, suggests anything at all, it is immediately shut down because he's not on your team. This is not a board who's willing to work together. It's a board who believes they've been given a referendum with no limits, and that's simply not true. 3 of you won election in 2022 by about 5%. And this means about 47% of people who voted didn't vote for you, and you still represent them too. That means 4 of you represent about 53% of the community, and Tom represents the other 47%. And we're only being represented by him. I've talked to a lot of teachers, many of whom voted for Karen, and some of the others of you too, and they are beside themselves for feeling essentially tricked into ushering in an extremist board. Mr. Connor, it's important to know that Pride Month has been historically recognized in our district for many years, and I encourage you to formally acknowledge it. I think that the reason I was discouraged from Ruby Bridges Day is because our superintendent was scared of being fired for that. And I understand you're probably in a difficult position because you may be targeted by this extremist board. So I understand if you won't recognize Pride, but this is a shame. I don't personally believe this.
Elizabeth Bornstein, and then Sandy Armstrong.
Greetings, Superintendent, Board Attorney, board members. I told Mrs. Rose I'd be back, and I'm going to keep coming back. She's in the back, but maybe she'll hear me too. I want to say, again, thanks to Superintendent Connor for a great year despite a lot of uphill battles with this board. I will say I agree with Connie Bruni. I was trying to find the strategic plan. I couldn't find it either. I really would like to have these things more accessible, and especially for short notice so we can be able to look at them in order to prepare to come here, those of us that come here to represent those who aren't here. You know, I just want all of us, all the students every day, all the families to be able to be engaged in this process and work collaboratively with the board. Unfortunately, the board's not able to work collaboratively on its own. You know, I encourage you to support Pride Month. I've just spent some time at Disney, Mrs. Ziegler's stomping grounds, my hometown, Philadelphia, my temple last night, all acknowledging Pride Month. Every student, every day. I want all of our students to know they are loved, they are seen, they are safe here, they're needed, they're unique, they're enough, they are you, they are valid, they are heard, and they matter. We need to make sure every student every day is true to the core. I was looking to do some sharing of information tonight on some other topics like vouchers and Mr. Clayton Taylor, which I'll get to, but I came across this post from Mrs. Rose from 2020. She said, "I'm tired of the backroom deals, game decisions, and petty politics. You," which I think means me, the constituents, because, secret, truth be told, I did vote for Mrs. Rose, but I won't be doing that again. But she said, "You pay for the buildings, the salaries, the buses, the crayons that help make your Sarasota County School District run, and you deserve to know that everything that is going on." As a school board member, I will never forget this, and I will always fight to ensure that we have full transparency on our school board and across our district. That was June 7th, 2020, from Mrs. Karen Rose. So, I learned a lesson last election. I won't do it again. I will be voting for every student every day. Mr. Clayton Taylor doesn't fit that bill for the audit committee. He's not an upstander. The vouchers, the applications are pouring in, as Mr. Edwards keeps trying to tell y'all, and the money's just draining out.
Thank you, Sandy Armstrong. And then John Wilson.
Hi, I'm Sandy Armstrong. It's hard when the chair decides to walk out and doesn't just give everybody a recess to stand up for a minute.
Ms. Armstrong, you can't hear everything in the back. It's
Okay.
actually louder back there than here. You'll get your time back, but you can hear everything in the back. They've put the speakers in, so you can have your time back. So when you're in the back, you can hear all the public comments. It's actually louder back there than in here.
I'm not sure what that's about. Okay.
Well, she can hear, anybody who goes in the back can hear
back
what.
there. I thought
Yeah,
you meant
anybody,
back
yeah, anybody who
there.
goes back
I
in
thought you
there
were
can
talking about us.
hear all the
Okay.
comments.
Great, thank you. Okay. Just was a little confused by that. Thank you. Well, number one, I wanted to say Happy Pride, and that there are a lot of young people who need to know that they're valued and they're loved and they're cared about. And they may not be just like each of you. They may be like some of you, and they may not be like all of you, and we don't know that. And there are organizations who begin to, or have begun to take studies on what happens with kids that don't feel okay and don't feel cherished. And a lot of times what happens is they try to kill themselves. And the last time I mentioned that here, somebody yelled at the back, oh, that's not true, but unfortunately it is much higher. And so our LGBTQ plus students need to have a way to be honored. And I'd like you to figure out how to do that within the law that I guess you have to follow. But I'm wondering what happens if a teacher, I realize school's out now, but there's some coaches that are doing things. What if they say to a young person that they know is trans, or a young person they know is gay or questioning, are they allowed to say Happy Pride? I don't know. Is that called teaching? Is that something they're allowed to do or not? Superintendent, I would like to hear about that. I'd like to know about that, because I think they need to know they're cared about. I just can't even begin to tell you how important that is. They need to be seen for who they are. And, sometimes we're seen for who we are, and it's not so comfortable. I know that some of you have had that experience recently. In terms of Title IX, I'm very still concerned that you voted to potentially put us at risk for losing $50 million. Please reconsider that tonight. Really, please reconsider that vote. Let the attorneys give you whatever it takes to word it in the way you need to, and then vote on it. But we don't need $50 million taken out of our taxes. So, I'm concerned about two other things. Free extended pre-K. I'm concerned that we aren't giving that to a lot of families who don't have the funds to do it, and then how are they going to pay for child care, and are those children going to be safe, and what's going to happen to their learning curve? And so I'd like you to figure out how to do that. And dual language immersion, I can't tell you how important that is for them to be able to learn in a way that they feel that they can communicate and can be heard as well. So that's about it for me tonight, but I wish you all a happy Pride. I wish you all a safe summer, and be well, and let's have a really good, fair election this time with honesty. Thank you.
Thank you, John Wilson. And then our final speaker will be William Dubrow.
John Wilson, my daughter Olivia. I come here with something prepared every time, and then I listen to everybody here crying about vouchers and money, and we can't be out here in the front. But they don't remember when we had the other board and they ran people out to the sidewalk. You can't even not be on school property. So, it's just, I don't know if you're hypocrites or just not informed. So I'll tell you why everybody's leaving this district in droves, because in first grade for her, BLM was on the computer. Okay, all right, We got rid of that. Then the next thing was, now we have a BLM leader on the equity committee. Are you kidding me? The next thing was, now we have a guideline, because guidelines don't have to be voted on, that you can talk to my kindergartner about changing their sex and you don't have to tell the parents. Do you really think that that's why people are leaving the public schools? Because you can't round everything up. But this point of view that's over here, this community, because it's not my community, they're the ones that are making everybody leave public school. And then they cry about the money. Stop. Make sure everybody has the same thing. The other thing is, we want to have teachers and staff in this county that we can count on. We don't want principals at Riverview High School that were in court documents that the judge even said they altered documents. Now, Asplin, apparently, I don't know if he was a magistrate or what he is, but he has nothing to do to say about that. So I would like some sort of response on that, on why we still have somebody around our kids that should not be around our kids. You can, if you know anything about the DJ case. Lastly is, we're crying about some guy in the equity committee where this dude says, because I'm a Republican, that I'm a Nazi. How do we break the law? I don't break. I'm just saying. So we're gonna cry about that guy. He shouldn't be there, but it's okay to call me a Nazi. Come on, listen. All I hear is double standards in here all day long. And plus, I also want a resolution. I want a resolution because how do we break the law? Working not in the school district's best interest, only a small group. And then the other thing, he broke the law masking my kids. So if we can write a resolution for somebody who did something in their private life, we can write.
And the final speaker is William Dubrow.
Thanks for having me. It's Bill Dobro, William. Been called worse. What a year. What a year. And I wish it is going to get better, but it's going to get a little bit bumpier before it gets better. If we make it to November, we should be in fairly good shape thereafter. I'm going to wrap this up in a kind of a, I don't know, maybe confusing way. But I wanted to thank the board for everything that they do and every effort that they put forth, because it's not easy being up there for what little bit of money y'all get. I want to thank the Gays Against Grooming community that helped us with our getting HB 1545 signed by Governor DeSantis. They were instrumental in helping us, so we appreciate that a bunch. And if anyone who's not familiar with this community, they've come out with a new book called The Gender Trap, and you might want to check that out. Tucker Carlson's endorsed it. So let's see, definitely worth checking out. I'm looking at some tweets, and if you go to their one of them is from one of the members, says, I'm proud to be with those I'm proud to be of those within the gay community who once fought for basic decency and the right to pursue happiness, to the pursuit of happiness, and now stand against what their attempts turned into, an agenda proliferating into utter darkness and the destruction of children. And another one says, there is no pride in indoctrinating sexualizing, sterilizing, and mutilating children. Our community has been hijacked by predators dead set on hurting kids, and so show more. But I'm a conservative. My neighbors next door to me just went on vacation. They're Democrats. We had different signs in our yards. But they helped me move in, and I'm going to help them with a couple things they need taken care of while they're gone. And the truth is, we're going to do a lot better getting along together.
That's it. That concludes public comment. Thank you. Superintendent Connor, if you can please address revisions, any revisions to the agenda?
Madam Chair, there was an addendum added to item 5, which is the instructional classified personnel report.
Thank you. And moving on to the approval of the consent agenda as amended, do I have a motion?
Actually, Madam Chair, I just wanted to, because school board items, item agenda number 36 includes the list of policies, and I believe a member of public comment had noted that there is a piece of language, and I gave the attorney, I don't have the line in front of me, it's like 142 and 149, just to make sure when it's general comments versus agenda. So can we pull item number 36 to just new business so we can pull that one off? So,
yes.
Okay, so then it would be, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended with the inclusion of pulling item number 36 to new business.
Mr. Duggan, we don't need to vote on that, is my understanding. We could just pull it and move on.
That's correct.
Thank you. Just wanted to confirm that. You made a motion, and we need a second.
There you go.
Second.
Thank you.
There is a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda as amended, and please vote. Is it coming up?
Are you able to do that?
Is anybody's up?
Nope. Yep, there it is.
Okay, it's up.
You want to hit refresh and see what happens?
I can't tell you if they don't put it up there. It passed, the consent agenda as amended passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to new business, we will go to item number 36 as it precedes number 37 that starts with new business, if everyone's in agreement with that. Mr. Duggan?
Yeah, so there is a typo to to two sentences in one of the 18 policies on agenda item number 36. It is proposed school board policy 2.222, and specifically it is the first two sentences of subsection C2. The first sentence begins at line 141 and currently reads, "Priority will be given to individuals who are members of the following groups during the agenda items comment portion of the school board meeting: current residents of Sarasota County, parents or guardians of current residents of Sarasota County schools employees, and current Sarasota County school students." It should instead read, "Priority will be given to individuals who are members of the following groups during the general comments portion of the school board meeting: current residents of Sarasota County, parents or guardians of current residents of Sarasota County schools employees, and current Sarasota County school students." The second sentence, which begins at line 145, which is actually the next sentence, currently reads, Members of these designated groups shall be permitted to speak on agenda items prior to other attendees of board meetings wishing to speak that are not members of one of these groups. It should instead read, members of these designated groups shall be permitted during the general comments portion of the school board meeting to speak prior to other attendees of school board meetings wishing to speak that are not members of one of these groups.
Are we looking at that as a correction, or do we need to vote, make a motion to amend?
I move to approve item number 36 with the amendment to item 2.222, as the language was, as just noted by the general counsel.
I do have one comment. There is one more.
Oh, boy.
One more on line 151. The speaker card for the agenda items should read the speaker card for general comments. That's the third change.
So the three, okay. Do you want me to pull that back?
Why?
Nope. Your mic.
Why don't you move to amend, or why don't you move to approve the request to advertise the revised board policies with the 3 changes that have been read to policy 2.222 as part of the approval?
So moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second to advertise policy 2.222 with the 3 noted amendments. And Mrs. Ziegler, you're up first if you have anything additional.
No, go ahead. I'll go after that.
Please, you're first.
No, but I think that's from before. So go ahead. I just need to cancel it.
Mr. Edwards?
It's all good.
I am, this was a public comment topic, so I'm going to respond to a couple of those things. I want the public to realize that I've tried to explain to the board on several occasions that the agenda items, which you still will be speaking on first in this revised policy, included firing the superintendent, Vermillion, redistricting, and the resolution. So as long as the board continues in this fashion to bring in controversial topics, they will be discussed first, and general comments go to the tail end of the conversation. So, and I'm also going to support this because this is the topic that we have discussed more than any other topic, including anything regarding academic achievement in this board room since I've been here. And I would very much like to get it off our plate, advertised, and moved on. So I will be supporting it.
Mrs. Ziegler?
Thank you. I want to note that there has been obviously a lot of discussion with the prior board on public comment, and I know a couple of members from the public have commented on commenting, and I believe this is a good step forward. It's highlighting and prioritizing the board business, and Mr. Edwards, you just highlighted very important items that came before this board that certainly warranted a lot of public comment, all of which I think had most of great outcomes, and I continue to welcome that. I also think this is a good opportunity to, again, and I appreciate Mrs. Rose's leadership in this space, because I believe that as chair, former chair, that's very challenging to chair with all of the emotion, but I understand, no matter where you stand on any position, that you're coming to speak with true conviction and concern. Many of you are parents, and I understand. It doesn't matter if I agree with you or not. I believe you have a right to speak, and I understand that passion. So I'm very excited about the way in which we are prioritizing the board business and our stakeholders. Our students are part of that, so I know there was a lot of people talking about us not listening to students. I will just say broadly that we do. I know we listen. It does not necessarily mean we're going to always agree with you, but I'm proud that we're able to move past. I don't want to discuss this policy any longer either, but I think we're leading in a good posture, and I hope that we start to see a difference. But so I thank you, Madam Chair, for that.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions or comments, we have a motion and a second. Please vote. And the item number 36, policy 222, with the 3 amendments, passes unanimously. Item number 37, audit selection committee designee. Mr. Connor, if you'd like to present.
Board, we have an item here to present for the approval of a designee for District 4 for the Audit Selection Committee. Our board policy 2.29 states that each district, represented by an appointed member of their respective board members, resides in Sarasota County. Currently, there is a vacancy in District 4, so to fill this, Mr. Clayton Taylor has been selected by Ms. Marinelli, so that is being presented for approval tonight.
Thank you, Superintendent Connor. Do I have a motion?
I move approval that Clayton Taylor be appointed the designee for District 4 to the Audit Selection Committee.
Second.
There is a motion and a second that Clayton Taylor be appointed the designee for District Number 4 to the Audit Selection Committee. Mr. Edwards, please.
Thank you. I will not be supporting this after I've done careful deliberation, and I feel badly because I feel that each district should be able to nominate, and their fellow board members should support that nominee. But I am sitting on a school board where it's comfortably or uncomfortably extremist in positions often, and this gentleman, his social media posts are aligned with the same group of folks that we're dealing with at the hospital board, and it's the same challenge that I think we have to keep out of the school district. So I will not be supporting this person's nomination.
Ms. Marinelli, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be supporting this as I'm the one who nominated Mr. Taylor, and I find that double standards are being applied here because we do have a board member who posts things anti-Trump, that those that are Trump are Nazis. So I want to throw all of that out and look at somebody who volunteered when there's not a lot of people that volunteer for these jobs, and look at the attributes. He has a history of being on finance, and it's double standards, and I find it unacceptable, and I will be voting for him, and I think he'll be an asset to the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Enos.
Yes, as the audit committee chairperson, in reference to that and regarding to, I know we've had discussions in reference to what is the actual, what does the committee actually do in reference to what does the committee do. I know that there's a vacancy. I also will point out that the nomination, he is also on the Charter Review Board, as he's been elected to in Sarasota County as a Charter Review Board member. So on top of that, he does hold the position with Sarasota County. And as the chair, you know, we have very, very limited scope as it relates to anything as it relates to the finances.
Ms. Ziegler, please.
I want to point out, I appreciate anyone who volunteers their time for the committees that we talk about up here, but the Financial Advisory Committee and the Audit Committee, separate committees. And I regret that certain statements are made. I don't know this individual, but I appreciate the willingness to serve. And I would just want to cite that we hear so much about division and hatred and fear, and it would be great if we would refrain from trying to consistently put people into buckets and using the kind of language that is anything but unifying. But I will be supporting this, and I'm ready to move forward.
Seeing seeing no further comments or questions, please vote that Clayton Taylor be appointed the designee for District Number 4 to the Audit Selection Committee. And that passes 4-1. This is a formal warning to the person that is hollering out during the meeting completely and totally against our policy. I'm going to ask that you be removed if you do it again. This is a formal warning. Item number 38, annual renewals to purchase materials or services exempt from the building process. Mr. Connor, Superintendent Connor, if you could please present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board members, I pulled this item to new business and transparency just because it is a significant financial impact, and we want to make sure the public is aware. This is a routine item that we will renew every year. I'm presenting it as a part of just making sure that the public is aware that the goods and services listed here are vendors that we utilize in various aspects, from whether it be furniture, printing paper, supplies, supplemental resources for instruction. None of these particular vendors would be considered a core major tool of instruction. These would all be supplemental, so we will I present these to you because we've been doing business with these particular vendors for quite a while. They have been vetted, and just for transparency, bring them to you for approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move for the approval for the annual renewals to purchase materials or services for fiscal year 2025 per attached list that are exempt from the bidding process.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. Seeing no questions or comments, please vote. And the item number 38, annual renewals to purchase materials or services exempt from the bidding process, passes unanimously. Item number 39, the strategic plan. Mr. Connor, if you would like to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Board, tonight I bring to you the approval for the Every Opportunity 2030 strategic plan. This is a well-defined strategic plan that will guide our efforts for the next 6 years. It ensures that we are aligned and we're working collaboratively towards our common objective, which is ensuring that we're continually advancing and we have the accountability and transparency measures and expectations outlined within this plan. With this plan, we will be able to systematically address the needs of our students, making sure that we're enhancing the quality education for all students of Sarasota County, and ensure that we have the effective allocation of resources to do so. So I'm excited about this. I will say there was a couple comments made about the whether that the availability of the plan. It has been on our website. I did notice we worked with Kathy. There was a reason that the link was not working on the plan, on the agenda item, but it has been publicly available on our main page of our banner throughout since our workshop, our last workshop. So we apologize for any misinformation there, or lack of being able to access that. So other than that, it is recommended that the strategic plan be approved as presented, and I look forward to getting to work on the strategic plan.
Thank you, Superintendent Connor, and I couldn't be more ecstatic that we are focusing in on academic achievement to build upon the hard work and the foundation that you and your staff have established here. And I think it's important to point out that in contrast to several public commenters, dual language is found in the strategic plan, specifically 1.3.11 and 1.4.11. So please let me repeat that, because there's been several commenters that have stated it doesn't exist in some factual manner, and that is incorrect. Once again, 1.3.11 and 1.4.11 does reflect dual language services as it should. And I, again, commend the hard work that's gone into this, the data that has been included in it to continue with the foundation that Superintendent Connor has built, the accountability systems, in the progress that's been made to focus on academic achievement. I'm extraordinarily thankful and excited. Do I have a motion?
I move that the strategic plan be approved as presented.
There's a motion and a second, and Mrs. Ziegler, please.
Yes, thank you. I want to echo, well, first, thank you to the members of the public for bringing that to our attention, because when this was first, prior to workshop and then moving forward, it was actually dramatically different than a prior strategic plan where there was some concerns about accessibility. So I was very excited when he said, we're going to post it online, it's going to be accessible, without me even recommending what that has happened in the past. So I apologize that it was not attached to the, because I did check, well, that was mentioning, and I didn't notice it, but it has been available. I will tell you, I've read through it. There's tremendous detail, tremendous focus on all of the things that I believe everyone in this room all agree are priorities, and I'm very excited and really appreciate the leadership of our superintendent, as well as the team that he's brought on board. I am overwhelmingly optimistic about where we are moving as a district. I am incredibly proud of what's been able to be accomplished thus far. So onward and upward we go. I'm very excited to approve this.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards, please.
So a couple in response to public comments. The dual language, obviously, as stated, is very much alive and well in the strategic plan. Multiple conversations that I've had with the previous superintendent and this superintendent about dual language and how important it is, since the Hispanic community alone represents around 23% of our school district and our student population. For example, Mr. Connor, with my suggestion, had a listening tour on a Saturday morning for the Hispanic community, and it was very well attended. So, and we have a website that with the click of a button changes it into that person's language. So I want you to know that there is lots of conversation. We had with Megan Green, we had lots of conversation in and around the Student Code of Conduct and how we reach out to families and how, and so it's moving. I will point out that when you have a superintendent reset, it takes about 2 years for a lot of those kinds of things to get caught back up, but they're moving, and I want to reassure that to the public. I also want to talk a little bit about pre-K and the expenses that are associated with that, because that came up often in public comments. I've received emails. I've had lots of conversations in the community about this, and I want to reassure everyone that it is a priority of this school district and this superintendent. We all see the data about what pre-K does, even versus well and above what VPK does. I just had a really nice conversation with our new COO this week, and we've had conversations about how the luxuries of what we've been able to afford as Sarasota County, it's changing. Part of it has to do with the voucher program. Part of it has to do with the expenses associated with running the school district, unfunded mandates that I've asked so that we can start getting more transparent with the public of what we get funding for and what we have to provide and an associated cost for those kinds of things. One unfunded mandate that I'd like to just throw out there as an example, I believe we're around $8 million that we get from the state for security. I think it's around that number. I'm not going to, but regardless, I think we spend close to 30 million. And that's a difference about what and that's not money that's money that we're spending because we have to and want to. And that's just an example of how we have to do a better job of explaining that to the public. And when it comes to pre-K, the VPK commitment is our stake in the ground. And what we did find out in conversations with Mr. Connor is that fully braided classrooms with all of the money that's available still cost the school district $10,000 out of the general fund. So what we have to do with all of these different agendas and all of these criteria is to figure out with the superintendent how we can afford that and get it to as many families as possible. So the answer is we're not doing it, but we're doing it as fast as we can with the monies that are available, with the priorities that the board sets up as the priorities that we're going to commit to. So that's an important part of this strategic plan. And I want to commend all of the conversations that Mr. Connor and I and the administration have had relating to getting to those priorities and figuring out how we can get them started now and where we go from here.
Ms. Marinelli?
Thank you, Madam Chair. There was a lot of public comment about the pre-K. Mr. Connor, could you just take a few minutes to explain the funding of pre-K and the voluntary pre-K? And so people understand that that's not a decision that we are making, that is how the funds from Tallahassee and how the legislature. Could you explain that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm very, very happy about a lot of the public comments of those who are very interested in early childhood education. I think for me, it's the first priority of the strategic plan. An early, strong, solid foundation is really critical for us. So the fact that we're having the conversation and it is the priority really excites me. I will tell you, upon my entry, that was one of the things that we had to tackle very quickly because we knew ESSER funding was coming to an end. In September of 2024, all of those federal dollars are sunsetted. The challenge there was that about $4 million of what we fund, the entire pre-K program that we have here in Sarasota, is funded off of those ESSER dollars. Well, we knew it wasn't going to be an option to sunset the pre-K program. It's too important. So the team they tackled that quickly in terms of where are the available funds that we could secure. And the first one being is the state-funded VPK program. Florida offers that to school districts. Of the 67 school districts in Florida, there are only 5 who are not participating in VPK state funding. Sarasota was one of them. So first, right off the rip, we've got to participate in that. So we applied for that, and in 2024-25, there will be 4 districts, and Sarasota will be one of the 6, the others who will be a part of the state funding revenue that comes in. So that will take care of about half. It pays for about 540 hours of instruction. So the remaining half day, we looked at braiding sources such as we have IDEA funding that is appropriate funding source for there. It's not a big pot of money, but it helps every little bit. There's also the ability to use Title I funding, which we looked at as a possible revenue source. And then you have what we call wrap services. So that's to get that full day inclusive. That's where, and I think that's where a lot of our public comments came in tonight, it's a burden, right? It is a burden for parents to have to come out of pocket. But what I can tell you, when we did a deep dive and we analyzed this very deeply, we looked at the private providers here in Sarasota County, and we looked at similar sized school districts across Florida to determine what would be the appropriate charge per week, per month, per year for our families that we believe we could close that gap, that funding gap that we have, provide a full day of service, and meet the needs of our community. And we believe we struck that balance, where we are actually one of the lowest charge in the county. So we're not the lowest, but when you look at the average weekly cost, we're about $107 for a weekly cost for a full wraparound service. So like-sized school districts, private providers, we're very, very competitive in that sense. The other thing is if you are on free or reduced lunch, you get free or reduced prices. So a free student on free lunch has free VPK, or reduced, we cut that cost in half for those students. And then, of course, because we get full funding for ESE pre-K students, if they are designated ESE, it is free for them as well. So it would be absolutely wonderful to have free across the board for everybody. But we know, too, that we have to strike a balance with our private providers, because we also know that there are services provided within this community for VPK programs through private providers that reach thousands of students in this community that we currently don't have capacity to serve. And we also don't want to put people out of business as well. So you have to think, the more that we take away from these private providers as well, that puts them at a burden where they may have to end up closing shop. So that's a balance that we strike with the ELC, and we look and have those conversations. So it is a very complex issue, but we're continuing to work. If you read the very first strategic action, 1.1.1, it is that the team will be looking at every alternative funding source in any way that we can continue to increase that revenue to close that gap as much as we can, because we believe it's that important. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, it does, because I think the narrative tonight was trying to have that the majority board was not supporting having the voluntary pre-K for our students, and that we were charging money. And I think the narrative needs, you hit it exactly what's going on, and that we do work with the community to provide those services, because we don't have the capacity to do it all, and we do need the help of the community if we're all working for kids, and to get that early education so when they do enter kindergarten, they're ready. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Enos, you were up. Did you cancel it?
Well, I'll speak. The strategic plan, looking at being a part of the last one that was being created, I mean, this one, obviously, as the mission is to try to make our kids, as literate in science and health and everything, mental health, everything that we can possibly do within the community. I commend you, Mr. Connor, for everything that you've done on this, because I think that it is exceptional. One of the things that I was going to say why I did cancel is I did meet with a couple of foundations, and I know that this is something that they are very, very supportive of. So if there is to make sure that we're contacting them to maybe they could offset some of the funding for some of those community members who may, need assistance. I know that if you were to go to private daycare for a 3-year-old, you could be anywhere between $500 to $1,000 a week. So it's very, very expensive. So, and obviously they're not getting what they're getting here coming to our schools to be able to be provided to get a head up to heading into kindergarten, which ultimately will just make our numbers that much more increase that much more, as we've already seen this last year. So that was my comment, is thank you for all the work, your due diligence, as well as that I know that the foundations are very, very much involved in the pre-K, especially with the GOSHO program, that this may be another avenue where they could help support our families.
Seeing no further comment or questions, please vote on item number 39, the strategic plan. And item number 39, the new strategic plan, passes unanimously. And finally, board member comments. Mr. Edwards, do you have more you'd like to add?
So I want to start off by saying that the juxtaposition of attacks, if you will, on public comments from both sides of the aisle, if you will, are reflective of what I look at in history of a time period like the Scopes monkey trial, how divisive that was to public schools. I look at desegregation and the divisiveness that was attached to that particular era of public education. And I know that as public education rode through those eras, and found its modicum, found its place, that we could never go backwards. We've moved ahead and we've gone on from those divisive periods. And I couldn't sit here on this board, and I can't share with the community enough that I have to be optimistic that this horrible, horrible time period that we're in right now, that we're going to survive it, and public schools will survive it with all of your help. And I think what I've heard, even from both sides of the aisle, that there's reflections of time period where we are actually saying some of the same things. Not a lot, but they're there. And I encourage the public to find those nuggets and bring those into public comments, like the feedback that we got about dual language and early learning. That was excellent feedback and fostered incredible conversation from the superintendent. Moving on from that, I want to clear up a couple of divisive hit jobs that did find their way into my inbox. I am not for boys in girls' restrooms. I am not for girls in boys in girls' changing rooms. I think that hit job also was to harass and diminish our trans students. So while I'm there, while I'm on that moment, and while we all are in agreement that the litigation has settled, and from my seat on this dais, I wish you all a happy Pride. But furthering down the line around that hit job, I want to say that what's confusing to me is that the address of that PAC fund that put the hit job out is the same address as a fellow board member's treasurer for her campaign. I'm not suggesting that it was done by the same person, but there's a coincidence, and inclusive of the fact that the text messages went out for that specific named person who is on our audit committee, who is on our finance committee, and all of that was devised to say that that person will be running against me as a school board member. Have at it. I have at it. But the potential impropriety of all of that and its potential connection, although statutorily I'm told is not unethical, I still ask the question. Furthermore, I want to say that when it comes to standing for the flag, I believe in that. I don't believe that people should sit down that's my personal opinion. If they're physically able, please stand. And I am offended when people go after veterans, such as comments that they're losers and suckers. And I don't believe that the flag should be used to beat police officers when there's a political disagreement. That's how adamant I feel about veterans and the American flag. And lastly, when it comes to political hit jobs, I have spent hours trying to figure out why we've spent $50,000 on redistricting. And here's the only thing that I could uncover. And I say this for the public and I say it for the press. One of my opponents was in District 5 and ran until Mr. Enos declared. And that opponent dropped out when Mr. Enos ran and successfully won. And in the redistricting that cost taxpayer dollars, that opponent was moved from District 5 to District 3. Now, I don't know if that's an ethical violation. That's up to, again, other people to think. But a political hit job, that is the only reason that I have been able to figure out why we have been redistricting. And I've asked everyone, including the supervisor of elections. So if political hit jobs are the topic du jour, have at it.
Are you done? Mrs. Ziegler?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to address a couple different things. I know there was a lot of discussion, and even I think there was some about the vouchers and what have you. I don't want to put words in anyone's mouth, but I want to say that even if you look at the strategic plan and you look at the direction that the superintendent has put in place, I believe in school choice. I've said it all day, but I believe as board members, it is our goal to make this the best choice. And I believe we are absolutely moving there. I believe that there is the opportunity. It's hard when you're a working parent. Sometimes you don't know what the facts are. I'm very encouraged to see the marketing strategies that we have forward, so it gives our families the opportunity to be informed decision makers, which is what I think is ultimately the most important thing when it comes down to selecting the right school for a child to be successful. So I want to highlight that because I know that there is a lot of discussion about that, but I want to say that the efforts that are being done at this district through the superintendent are really making a huge difference. And I believe that certainly while we may have seen people leave, a lot has changed in the last year. Like, a lot has changed. And I think that, I know the conversations I'm also having personally, both with staff and families, some who have left, some who are now looking at coming back, it is a testament to what changes have been made and the focus that is truly on academics. And it does pain me to hear there's a constant drumbeat of, you know, the separation and the division, and I don't, there's, you know, the people who, when I continue to hear the "don't say gay" piece drives me nuts because it doesn't exist, but it's used as I'm sorry, was someone yelling? But it's used as an opportunity to create division. And I will say, we're going to keep moving forward. If people want to continue to beat that drum, go for it, but it's just not happening. And I am very encouraged at the direction of this district. And again, the superintendent and the leadership and the team that he's brought on, I have never been more excited. I do want to bring forward the component of, we have an evaluation coming up. As chair, during the superintendent search, I worked with council to create, which is kind of complicated because you have to do it on your own, create a contract, and particularly when I know we all discussed having tying it to outcomes and metrics. But the challenge was in year one, there were so many systematic changes that there was not so much done on the metrics, although I don't believe the superintendent's fearful of that. I think the strategic plan illustrates that. But with the evaluation coming up, I wanted to propose the opportunity for the chair to work with council and propose some options that we could consider in line with the evaluation that would look at metrics with outcomes, just because we did not have that opportunity to do that before. So I wanted to put that suggestion forward. It would line up with the evaluation process that is coming forward and allow the board to evaluate those options. So that is the suggestion I have.
Thank you. Mr. Enos, please.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. A couple of quick things. First of all, June 6th is D-Day. Thank you to the greatest generation that's ever lived. Well, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's going on right now. Hats off to them for all of their service, especially when you start looking at the terrible, terrible things that have happened. There's been a lot of stuff on the news. The other thing is, in reference to school safety and security, please, as the general public, one of the bills that were passed was House Bill 1473, and there's going to be significant changes. Again, I could tell you that Florida, without question, leads the nation in reference to implementation of school safety. I just spoke the other day. Unfortunately, I missed the swearing in of our school police department. If you look at the caliber of people that come here into Sarasota that want to continue providing safety for our students is unbelievable. So my hat's off to Chief Lorenz and the school police department. But one of the things I would tell you is when you look at 1473, that there's going to be a lot of different changes that are just going to make our staff and our school that much more secure, you know, such as, you know, there are so many things in there just in reference to gates and locked doors and monitoring processes and pieces in there. So please make sure that as you move forward with 1473, I think that that's something that's going to be significant that becomes implemented on July 1st. And I know that the board has met with the school police department and safety and security and staff in reference to how we're going to implement those changes moving forward, because it's they're all mandated. And one of the things that, to Mr. Edwards' point, is that this is the one thing that's nationally is that people mandate school safety changes, but they don't provide any funding. So I could tell you that with funding would come a tremendous amount of upgrades that every school should have, because every school district, whether you're rural, urban, doesn't matter where you're at, that you should be able to have the opportunity to provide the very best safety for your students. Because unfortunately, the FBI has reclassified mass shootings. It has to be at least 4 people, and we see 1 or 2 people regularly, but they just don't make the news because they're not classified as a mass shooting. So I would just tell you that as we continue to move forward, to keep your eyes open for that. Also, I know that when it comes to the charter schools piece, I was the one that made mention about the money. The problem and the issue that you run into is that, as if you look at the statutory process of that, is that charter school, which was reviewed by the school district, that it met all the qualifications in order to be approved. And it was going to be, just in the last time, it was $60,000, and it was the same exact company that provided the same exact application that we were told would be overturned, and we would have incurred their legal expenses as well as ours, so it would have been way over $120,000. So unfortunately, that's the one piece that I don't like, is that that's being taken away, and it's my understanding that it'll then go to the governor, to Department of Ed, and that piece will be taken away from us altogether for anybody who wants to be a charter. So there are some things that in Sarasota County, as being a graduate, if you're in all 3 of my kids have all graduated from Sarasota County. Shout out to Riverview High School. They have 4 graduates. Thank you very much. At the end of the day, I could tell you, is that with the superintendent and the board, safety and security, and really, as I said the last time, as in Sarasota High School having the highest graduation rate they've had in 110 years, our 3rd grade reading levels going up by 7 points. The things that are that's important for all of us is that's the stuff that we should be looking at. And that's what I hope to continue to maintain our focus on as we move forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Ms. Marinelli, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to also congratulate all of our new Sarasota County police that are going to be joining us. And then also that evening, I was invited to go to the Sarasota Technical College for the graduating class of all the new law enforcement people. So that was a wonderful occasion also. So when you look at what caliber of people are coming to want to be law enforcement to protect our students and our community, it's very comforting to know that we have people that are willing to put their life on the line for us. And I'd also like to thank the superintendent and his staff for all the hard work on the strategic plan. We are going in the right direction, and I think from pre-K to K through 12 and going on to the Sarasota Technical College, we're going to see great strides in the next couple of years. So I really appreciate that. And then on a more of a personal note, I think it's really unfortunate. Everybody in this room, everybody up at this dais says they want politics out. And that's all it is. The public comments are basically political things that are against the board, and the narrative is trying to be changed. And no matter what any board member or the superintendent talks about, the vouchers, the charter schools, the things that you think we're doing or we're not doing, not taking the safety of kids, not listening. That's all a narrative that is not true. You might not agree with us, and that's fine. That's your right. But to keep bringing it up, and then to also bring it up here on the dais, and Mr. Edwards, I try to be so respectful, but that 10-minute thing that you just talked about, without naming names, but you brought the politics right up here on the dais, and I challenge you and everybody else to not do it. I challenge the audience to not do it. And I bet it can't be done. I bet you can't do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marinelli. The funding for a public school is based on enrollment. HB1, we don't get money and then we haven't given back money. Every single year in my tenure serving this community, funding is based on enrollment. I think that if I go back, I think it's important for me to go back to my days as principal. And my school always had a waiting list, and I had open tours regularly for families to come in and see instruction, talk to students, teachers, and look at our curriculum programs. And I would tell those parents before they actually apply for school choice to go and look at all their options, private, public, charter. Every family has a right to pick a school that offers their child's particular characteristics the highest quality. I want to make it very clear that I support our legislature. I support parents having a choice of where they send their child. For several years, 30% of our students couldn't read, more than 30% couldn't read at grade level. Who's going to tell that parent that they don't have an option? So I want to make it clear that I'm in agreement with our legislature. I applaud them for empowering parents to pick a school that matches their child's needs. That's what the business I'm in. I'm in the business of serving children and families, and I will continue to do so. So I commend our legislature. I support school choice. And in addition to that, families chose to come to my school, and I'm real confident that they're going to choose to come here under Superintendent Connor's leadership and what's happening with instruction. And I invite those families, and I want them to come here because we are the best, and we are going to continue to grow achievement, and I applaud the hard work that's been done to date. The last thing I want to talk about is the Superintendent Connor's contract is up for renewal, and I'm asking my colleagues if they are comfortable with me working with Mr. Duggan on establishing that contract to bring forth. Please.
I nominate Tim Enos to handle the contract conversation. He's used to handling those kinds of negotiations, and I think it would be advisable for the public and for the dais to have Mr. Enos, and I make a motion to nominate Mr. Enos.
I do not hear a second with your nomination, Mr. Edwards.
I have a question. I can't second it because I don't know why. I mean, if there's something that would not make the board chair, which is normally the person that represents us, if there's some reason behind not having Ms. Rose as our chairperson do it versus Mr. Enos, I'd like to know why. I can't vote on something that I don't have a reason of why.
I think I said I was comfortable, and I know his ability to have worked both sides of contract negotiations. And I think that using that expertise as a leg up and a step forward supersedes the chair. I think I was clear about that.
Ms. Ziegler, please.
Pardon me, excuse me. To be clear, Mr. Enos, I have all the faith in you all day long. I think but I also have a lot of faith in our chair, just from a protocol standpoint. So unless there is a reason for such, and the chair and our vice chair prefers to do it that way, I do just want to make sure that we have the opportunity to evaluate. As I mentioned, there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to a contract contract negotiation. And I want to make sure we give the proper direction so we have that lined up as we look at the evaluation period. So whoever that is, I'm not seconding that. But if that's something between the two of you guys, work that out. But I have full faith in Mr. Enos, of course, but as chair, that's usually the position for the chair. And so that would be my preference, unless there's a decision between the two of them.
I'm comfortable going forward. Mr. Enos?
I appreciate the nomination. I know it's normally the policy of the chair. I know that the evaluation period is also coming up. One of the things that I appreciate that you bring it up is one of the things that I still do here is I hear about rumors. One of the things is the stability aspect. I know Mr. Connor has students here in the county, and I think that just for everybody, I mean, I think just ultimately is to be able to do something with a contract negotiation on extension. I think is the best interest of everybody, especially when we look at the numbers that are coming out with third grade reading, the steps he's taken at ESE, the strategic plan, the staff, the professionalism, the professional development, the creation of that position. I mean, there are so many things that I think that it just ultimately is advantageous to the faculty and to the parents of students here to be able to do some type of a contract extension. And like I said, I know that it's normally up to the chair for them to do the negotiations in reference to the contracts.
Thank you, Mr. Enos. Ms. Ziegler?
Thank you. I would echo that as far as the extension, so that there's proper guidance or guardrails with the general counsel and the chair to know where we each stand. So I echo that. I'm very encouraged. Really, I say all the time when I leave, I feel like our district has really elevated to a level of, it's grown up, and I think it comes down to some great leadership, and I would love, I think the stability piece, Mr. Enos, I'm glad you brought that up. I think that's a great opportunity to illustrate that, and that we are all rowing in the right direction with this leadership. So if that is part of the discussion that would be brought forward, I would be supportive of that as well.
And Mr. Edwards, looks like you're up again.
Thank you. To start off with, I am fully supportive of an extension for Mr. Connor. He cannot have done a better job in light of the fact of what he's had to deal with since he's been here. I think it's all been said 1,000 times already. And one of the huge pieces that I am supportive of is hopefully not another superintendent reset. We have to get the things moving and really push forward on a lot of the pieces that are in that strategic plan and deliver nothing but the best results for our students and their families. And that brings me to the conversation. I know that we got into a little discussion around HB1, and these are conversations that I've had with Mr. Connor that are pertinent. In order for us to be the best in the state, we have to be as competitive as we possibly can be. And so the academies, the labs, the pre-Ks, the security, all of the things that we've discussed that make us as competitive and more competitive than our private schools and our charter schools and homeschooling, that it's the best place to be, period, is the work that I do with the superintendent and the administration on an ongoing basis. Having said that, and I am for choice, I am proudly extended the contracts for many of our charters, many of my favorite charters here. What I am adamantly opposed to, which is a blatant use of public taxpayer funding, is charter schools for profit. And that I will always be opposed to. And one last piece of that I don't think the public is aware of. I met with Bonnie Penner this past week, and we looked at about $10 million, give or take, that left the school district because of vouchers, and I'm for choice, make no bones about it, but as those folks are leaving and the population that's coming in are the ESE students that require more support, more headcount, more work to be able to reach the academic goals that we all want. So it becomes a more costly school district as these voucher programs, and unless the public understands that, and unless Tallahassee understands that, we're going to find ourselves in difficult situations financially. So as much as we all want choice, we have to make sure that we're paying attention to the details.
Thank you. I think that before that goes out to the public, that perhaps we need to discuss it in a workshop, because my understanding is that we can't give money, that we didn't give anything back in the form of $10 million. And if I'm, misrepresenting that, I think that it's real important, extraordinarily important, that when we put something out to the public, that it has accuracy. And I would certainly like to hear that, because that's not the conversation that I had in reference to that item line, as well as there's a lot of rhetoric, and I let it go a lot because I do want to stay focused in, and we have accomplished so much academically. But when it comes to the district map, and yes, I am up for re-election, and that's apparent with the attacks that are repetitive. I asked this board at a workshop if they were interested in looking at the map, and they were. I did not make the motion to pass that map. So I want that, and you can go back and you can look, I'm speaking to the media, in the record that is on YouTube in those meetings. So the continual repetition of rhetoric, it is political, and it is, this boardroom has turned into a campaign, and it is sad, very sad. Ms. Ziegler.
Thank you. No, well, I want to make sure we're good on the contract direction for you.
Yes.
I would echo that. I think there's a lot of information out there, and I believe, again, when we talk about the vouchers or what have you and numbers, I did have the opportunity to sit with our CFO and the superintendent. By the way, I have to applaud you guys for the work that they did. I think it was mentioned before on ESSER and how I don't know if people can really understand how incredibly challenging that was for every district. We fortunately were we were talking about it constantly, but this team had a very small amount of time to make tremendous evaluation and strategic decisions, and they did so without having to cut positions. I cannot applaud you guys enough, and I genuinely appreciate that. And not only it also improved, I believe, dramatically the structure of our district to be focused in, particularly on populations that I believe have been overlooked for a very long time. So I'm very excited about that, and I would welcome a conversation on the cost so that there's accuracy out there. And then finally, so we've got to get back to the contract, but I will say that there is going to be, from now until probably, I don't know, August or November, I have no doubt that we're going to hear lots about politics for public comment, what have you. My hope is that board members would understand that this dais is really not the time for campaigning. That would be my preference. So moving on to the contract.
Thank you. The next work session is scheduled for Tuesday, July 16th, followed by a 3:00 p.m. board meeting. Mr. Enos, you have something you want to add?
Yes, Madam Chair, and I'd hate to bring it up again, are we going to be able to workshop the hurricane piece based on at the workshop?
There is a yes coming from Superintendent Connor.
Yes, sir. We have that on our docket for July workshop.
Because unfortunately, they're still with reports that this is supposed to not be a very good year. Knock on wood. Thank you.
Thank you all. This meeting is
Oh,
adjourned.
I'm sorry. Are we going to, just for clarity, are we going to have a motion about the board chair and the general counsel with the contractual
I didn't know that
details?
we had to vote on it, but we.
Well, or is there a
can do that.
consensus?
I
Is
saw
there-
no,
I thought that there was a consensus.
I have no,
Would
I
you
have
like
no,
it
I'm
to
not
be a formal vote.
Yeah, why don't you have a vote?
I move to direct I move that the chair and the general counsel work together to evaluate and bring forward a contract renewal option to be discussed at the next workshop. That work?
Next board meeting.
Excuse me, board meeting.
And is there a second? There is a motion and a second. Please vote. Mr. Edwards?
Always, I vote where I can to make it a unified vote. Yes.
Ms. Ziegler?
Yes.
Mr. Enos?
Yes.
Ms. Marinelli?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, and it passes unanimously. And now we are formally ending this meeting and allowing this fabulous staff to go home at 9:05. Thank you.